Three terrified kids are running for their lives, doing absolutely everything they can to escape the monster snapping at their heels. Their only goal is to find their legendary guardian deity, risking their very lives on a desperate gamble that leads them to a run-down old warehouse. Leading the way is a girl named Hakama. As she throws the warehouse doors open, they spot a massive glass capsule filled with glowing emerald liquid, with the faint silhouette of a person floating inside. Wait, look. It is a dead end. Denpo and Sandy, the two boys running behind her, shriek in pure panic. Hakama does not even have time to check if this figure is truly their savior, because that monstrous beast has already cornered them right at the entrance. Denpo and Sandy drop to the floor in absolute terror, covering their heads, while Hakama just stares blankly at the capsule, desperately whispering a prayer. "Please save us," she begs. "Please save us. O great guardian deity of ours." Request accepted. A deep voice suddenly echoes out, definitely not belonging to any of the three terrified kids in the room. And then watch this. Cracks violently spiderweb across the thick glass capsule before it completely shatters, releasing a brilliant beam of energy that shoots outward, tearing straight through the air to pierce the massive monster before it can harm. In complete shock, Hakama, Sandy, and Denpo slowly turn their heads back toward the source of that overwhelming power. "I told you believing in the future is always worth it," Jin murmurs as he finally awakens from a massive 100-million-year slumber. His face and build are exactly the same as before. Stepping out of the cryopod, he wears a highly satisfied smile on his face. Believing in infinite possibilities really does pay off. Even after a staggering 100 million years, Jin is still perfectly sharp and bursting with energy. To him, that epic slumber just felt a tiny bit longer than a regular nap. Jin starts looking around carefully. The only thing he is not quite used to yet is realizing he is standing in a world 100 million years in the future. Most of his stored database is heavily corrupted, making it quite a miracle that this underground shelter managed to survive all this time. He guesses it is likely all due to the dense presence of active nanoparticles floating in the air. Lost in thought, Jin glances over and notices a nano-injector sitting right next to the main computer terminal. He really wants to figure out exactly what happened to Earth, but unfortunately, all that his old buddy Kagura left behind for him is a single, mysterious message cube. But hey, does not he have actual survivors from future Earth standing right in front of him? Remembering the three kids, Jin turns around and asks if they can fill him in on the current state of the world. Except he is completely naked right now, so when he spins around, Denpo instantly covers Hakama's eyes to protect her. Meanwhile, Sandy is just staring wide-eyed without blinking, making Jin realize his awkward situation as he mutters about how terribly rude he is being. It seems he has basically been standing completely naked for 100 million years. He immediately starts rummaging around. And luckily, just like his body, his clothes have been perfectly preserved over time. Once Jin gets fully dressed, it becomes pretty obvious to everyone that he is actually an insanely handsome young guy. Together, the four of them finally step out of the ruined shelter. Feeling quite overwhelmed seeing sunlight for the first time in 100 million years, Jin looks out at the breathtaking view he had secretly dreamed of before going to sleep. Endless blue skies, grand mountains, and winding, sparkling rivers. There is absolutely no trace left of the era he once knew. Seeing him dazed, Hakama bravely tugs his sleeve, whispering for their guardian deity to please follow them. "Just stay close behind us, please." Only now does Jin get a really good look at his three young companions, who seem quite human at first glance. Yet he is certain humanity went extinct 100 million years ago. And these kids all have strange animal-like traits on them. For instance, Denpo has the nose and ears of a koala, while Sandy sports a pair of fluffy rabbit ears. Could these creatures have actually evolved to take on human forms over such an incredibly massive span of time? Perhaps they were influenced by those nanoparticles, Jin thinks, and the fact they still speak his ancient language is the absolute proof of it. Noticing he is just standing there staring, the three children stop in their tracks and stare right back at him with curiosity. Jin breaks the silence, realizing he has not even properly introduced himself to them yet. He tells them his name is Jin Shido, but they can just call him Jin. So, Hakama politely introduces herself as Hakama Finn. Denpo and Sandy do the same before the girl pulls Jin forward, prompting him to ask what exactly they need his help with. Hakama simply replies that they are almost there, explaining that she desperately needs Jin to destroy some brutal invaders for them. Jin has absolutely no idea who these invaders actually are, but the moment their village finally comes into view, he instantly understands why they are in such a frantic rush. Once a beautiful and peaceful village, the entire place is now swallowed up by a roaring sea of fire. The moment Sunny sees this, he bursts into tears, Sprinting forward as fast as his legs can carry him, Hakama tries to stop the kid but fails completely. Meanwhile, Jin stands back, seriously analyzing the situation. He takes note of the wooden barricades, realizing the houses around them are constructed from the exact same primitive. It seems their civilization has barely progressed at all, lagging far behind the level of Earth in the old era. Way before humanity went extinct, he quickly follows the three kids into the burning village. This time, Hakama turns pale as she spots an old woman desperately fighting off a monster. "Grandmother," she screams out in absolute panic. "Hakama, is that you? Why on earth did you come back here now?" The old woman turns her head, revealing facial features strikingly similar to Hakama's own. Looks like they really are grandmother and granddaughter. And that hideous monster must be the invader those three kids mentioned earlier. Jin stares intensely at the beast. It looks exactly like a corrupted demon from 100 million years ago. Could it be that people in this era just call them by a different name, invaders? While their dark nature remains exactly the same, Hakama's grandmother urges the girl to run away immediately, but she stubbornly refuses, insisting she'll stay behind to help her grandmother fight. Suddenly, a brilliant glowing aura begins to radiate from all around the girl's body. This energy is definitely not normal for a human. Now watch closely, Jin isn't just going to stand by anymore. It's time to test things himself. With a single, explosive blow, he strikes the monster square in the face and quickly snatches Hakama's grandmother to safety. "Let me step in for a moment," he says, carrying the old woman back, before giving Hakama an encouraging nod to charge right ahead. Empowered by the support of the guardian god she worships, the girl's confidence surges. A blindingly bright golden sphere begins to manifest right in the palm of her hand. Once fully charged, the energy sphere blasts directly toward the monster, detonating in a sharp, compact explosion. Hakama successfully defeats the enemy. Watching this, Jin is now almost entirely sure of his theory. This is the exact microparticle regeneration inhibition. The cells of that corrupted demon show absolutely no signs of recovery. It looks like Hakama is actually manipulating the nanoparticles floating in the atmosphere. Back in his own era, only rare, compatible individuals could ever pull this off, but here, it seems like anyone can do it. Jin decides to ask her grandmother about this mystery. Is that kind of fire orb something anyone in this era can create? The old woman stares at him as if he's a complete weirdo, wondering what on earth he means by this era. Even so, she still answers, "Not at all. Only a tiny handful of people can do that. It belongs strictly to those who possess divine power. Including myself, there are only 4 people in this entire village." Divine power? Jin mutters to himself. So that's what people 100 million years in the future call nanoparticle manipulation energy. Hakama finally runs over to her grandmother out of breath, frantically asking where the rest of the villagers have gone. It turns out, she had already evacuated everyone before fighting the beast completely alone. But immediately after, she starts scolding them again. "Why on earth did you kids come back? This village is as good as dead now anyway. That monster was just a newly hatched baby, and we are utterly helpless against the real adults." Just think about how insane that is. Soon, a whole swarm of those monsters will overrun and wipe out this entire place. "Grandmother, can you please stop being such a coward?" Hearing the grandmother's complaints, a young man suddenly steps out and speaks up. From the grandmother's words, Jin learns his name is Sax, who happens to be Sunny's older brother. "Those invaders are absolute trash. I'll tear every single one of them apart," Sax says with extreme confidence. Standing right beside him is a middle-aged man, Hakama's father. Just moments ago, the two of them had personally guided all the villagers to the safety shelter. Hakama happily runs over to stand right by her father's side. "Hakama, I was worried sick when you weren't at the shelter. Where on earth did you go?" he asks anxiously. "I went to the sealed door," she replies simply, causing her grandmother to instantly explode with sheer rage. She furiously lectures Hakama for daring to set foot inside the forbidden zone, leaving the poor girl looking completely flustered. Glancing nervously at Jin, she explains how her grandmother once told her a story about the village guardian god sleeping soundly behind that exact forbidden door, and if their village was ever in dire danger, that deity would surely awaken to rescue everyone. That was why she dared to drag her 2 friends along to the forbidden seal. Following her granddaughter's gaze, the grandmother finally inspects Jin very carefully. Although his appearance is slightly different from theirs, she fails to see any majestic aura of a divine god in this young man at all. But before she can even voice her doubts out loud, Sax lets out a smug scoff. "Please, spare me the joke. You call this lowlife a guardian deity? Stop playing the fool in front of me." Waking up after 100 million years, Jin is suddenly called a lowlife by the very people his nanos once saved. He is obviously not thrilled, but before he can even speak, Sandy steps in. Brother, this man is actually our real guardian deity. What? He snaps. I wondered where you went, and it turns out you were just wandering off with Hakama? Sax sneers, stepping closer to Jin to mock him. Look at his ears, he says. He is just some inferior weakling without a single beastkin trait on him. He was probably just wandering around by accident. And you guys went and completely misunderstood his entire deal. But Sandy insists they aren't wrong. After all, the three of them saw Jin take down an invading monster without even breaking a sweat. Sax just brushes it off, claiming that if it was just a young beast, he could have easily killed it with a single strike himself. Pushing things even further, Sax rudely points his spear right at Jin's face and issues a blatant warning. Listen up, outsider. This is the private business of our village. We don't need some low-class foreigner sticking his nose in. That's my point. So stay out of our way. With that, he brushes right past Jin without even giving him a second glance. When Hakama's father asks where he's going, Sax arrogantly claims he's off to wipe out that giant monster for good, and anyone too scared can just stay here and tremble. I guess no matter the era, teenagers with an attitude are always impossible to control. You absolute fool. You might actually survive this if you just turn around and run right now. Hakama's grandmother shouts after him, but Sax has absolutely no intention of stopping. Sighing, she turns to Jin with an impatient voice. All right, I have no idea who you are, but thank you anyway for stepping in and saving these kids. If you don't mind, could you please lead these children to the underground shelter with my son? She wants to chase Sax down herself and make one final gamble. If they can wipe out that invading beast once and for all, their village might actually stand a chance at surviving. But to her surprise, Jin flatly refuses. I have my own self-respect, he coldly tells her. I'm not going to stand around while some brat calls me an inferior being. Let him march off to his own death. You won't believe this guy. Sax actually tracks the giant beast all the way back to its lair. Hey, you ugly beast. I'm the one destined to carry this nation's fate, a warrior born to become a grand holy knight. And you are just some low-level invading creature? Sax yells. I'll show you I can crush you completely without anyone's help. Shouting his head off, Sax charges straight at the giant beast. Before he can even get close, the beast spawns two offspring ready to fight the second they hit the ground. But as they leap to block him, Sax swings his spear and slices them both apart with ease. He only has eyes for that fully grown invader. Thinking this will be an easy victory, Sax pushes himself to run even faster. Getting within range, he leaps high into the air and swings his spear down with all his might. Dark blood sprays from the beast's fresh wound, splattering Sax, but he only grins in absolute triumph. The creature roars, writhing in pain, while Sax lands gracefully back on the ground. But here's the catch, things are never that simple. In just a matter of moments, those deep gashes he made on its body are healing at a terrifying speed. By the time Sax realizes what's happening, the monster's sharp claws are already swinging right at him. Panic completely sets in, but at this extremely close range, he can't fight back or even try to run away. Bracing himself to get torn to shreds, Sax waits, but the fatal impact never comes. Peeking his eyes open, he's shocked to see the man he called a lowlife standing right there, blocking the blow for him. Are you done playing the clown yet? Jin casually conjures a shield with a single hand, looking completely relaxed, though his cold eyes are filled with pure disdain. Instead of feeling grateful, Sax is furious that the very guy he looked down on just saved his miserable life. He tries to argue, but gets cut off as the spawned beasts launch a sudden sneak attack. Turns out, those two young monsters he sliced earlier weren't even injured at all. Jin slowly pulls his other hand out of his jacket pocket and casually snaps his fingers. Instantly, an unseen force pierces straight through the bodies of the two smaller beasts, even as his other hand continues to hold off the massive adult monster. His movements are so blindingly fast that Sax, standing right there, can't even register what just happened. Grandma, run this way. Hurry up. Hakama's frantic voice echoes from a short distance away. Soon, two adults and three kids rush onto the scene. Spotting the insane battle, Hakama's grandmother and father can only stare with their mouths wide open. This adult monster has a completely massive, colossal body, but Jin just casually uses one hand to block its path. He says it is starting to feel pretty heavy now. Casually speaking like it is nothing, he then orders the rest of the group to fall back. Sax is standing way too close to run in time, so Jin just grabs him by the waist and drags him away. The moment his shield vanishes, the monster fiercely slams down a heavy blow, creating a shockwave so massive that people can barely keep their balance. Even so, Sax is completely safe thanks to Jin, but he can barely believe his own eyes as he asks him a question. What on earth are you? He asks, looking back and forth between Jin and the two juvenile monster corpses Jin just pierced. Normally, these creatures can heal themselves in an instant, no matter how much devastating damage they take from an attacker. But Jin pulls it off easily because he knows how to use nanomites to completely shut down their regeneration. Hearing this, Sax's ears start to ring. What are nanomites? He asks, and Jin answers that it is simply what people like him call divine power. Your strike just now was not bad at all. It was just a bit too shallow to trigger the regeneration block. After witnessing all of that, Sax finally starts to look at Jin in a totally different light. Still half doubting, he asks if Jin is really the legendary guardian god. But Jin immediately replies that he is no deity. But there is one thing I need to make absolutely clear, Jin says. You claimed this was strictly your village's own problem, right? In reality, this is actually my own personal problem. With those words, he walks toward the adult monster, getting ready to end everything right here. The beast is incredibly fast and attacks without a single pause. So Jin decides that his very first move is to lock down all its movements. His movements look incredibly gentle, but his precision is absolutely dead on. To the total shock of the crowd, Jin does not hide the truth at all. He tells them directly that these freaks are monsters born from the sheer stupidity of his own generation. Because of that, as a survivor from an era 100 million years ago, he has the responsibility to clean up this entire mess himself. I do not really understand everything you are saying, but can you actually pull that off? Sax asks. His tone is a bit softer now, but those deep doubts are still lingering. Now watch this. Jin is already standing right in front of the massive beast. He answers that he absolutely can, because he is a product created from a human civilization that carries a bloody history of endless, brutal days full of tragedy. The very last survivor. With those words, he unleashes his final blow. The raw energy exploding from Jin completely swallows the monster's giant body. With a massive boom, the earth-shattering explosion leaves everyone stunned, and the children, especially Hakama, look on with pure, unhidden worship. Jin's power literally seems to pierce the entire atmosphere, and when the dust settles, the monster's body has been blown to absolute pieces. Jin elegantly dusts off his hands, finally finishing up the thought he had started just a moment ago. And I am also the ultimate scientific weapon, he adds. Suddenly, everything falls silent, as if that beast and its filthy spawn had never even existed. But little did Jin know, someone was silently hiding in the bushes, watching his every single move. She had actually come to this area to investigate the new invading creatures near Kodama village, but she never expected to stumble upon such an unbelievable and mind-blowing sight. Jin has just displayed a strange, unmatched power that virtually nobody can match, and even the Holy Knight Captain back in the Imperial capital could probably never pull off something like this. This is an incredibly serious matter, so she feels she must rush back to the capital and report this entire situation to the guildmaster immediately. After dealing with the beast, Jin finally has time that night to open up the message cube Kagura left behind for him. Hearing his voice after so long makes Jin pretty nostalgic. The message plays, "Can you hear me, Jin? If you are listening to these words, it probably means I am no longer around in this world. Haha. I always wanted to say a classic movie line like that just once. So, how does the future world actually look in your eyes right now? Earth's environment has probably improved a whole lot, right? But unfortunately, there is still one major problem that has popped up. In the rest of the message, Kagura focuses entirely on that big problem he just brought up. It seems Kagura already knew beforehand that even if the ecosystem recovered, those corrupted beasts would never be completely wiped out. He started noticing that something was pretty off about a millennium after Jin began his long hibernation of 100 million years. Kagura himself had to enter periodic hibernation just to keep a direct eye on how the world was changing. After observing everything, based on his observations, Kagura reached a clear conclusion thanks to nature bouncing back. The actual number of those corrupted monsters had dropped quite a bit, but as nature shifted, something worse happened. New, highly evolved variations of these beasts started crawling out of the shadows. He wasn't sure how they would adapt, but they were bound to become an unpredictable, terrifying threat. Back then, all Kagura could really do was prepare the newly born generation, trying to give them whatever small fighting chance possible so they could survive against them. At the same time, he also left a special backup power source reserved just for Jin. Hearing this, Jin instantly remembered that strange nano syringe sitting right by his computer desk when he first woke up. Ever since that moment, Jin had kept it close by. In the message, Kagura explained that once activated, the nanoparticles would guide him automatically, So without wasting any time, Jin just injected it straight into his own vein. Right away, he felt a surge of raw energy rushing through his veins. Through human enhancement research, Kagura confirmed that Jin was the single person perfectly compatible with Nano, making him the only one who could wield this incredible power. He did not look any different physically, but wait for this, as Jin stared at his palm. A silver dagger suddenly materialized out of nowhere. So this is the ability to construct actual physical matter, simply by restructuring microscopic nanoparticles. He examined the dagger for a bit, finding this handy tool quite useful indeed. Kagura also mentioned that he had hidden similar upgrade power sources inside several secret research facilities scattered all across the globe. He did not store them in one single place just to prevent any unnecessary risks. That way, if the corrupted monsters ever stumbled upon one location, the other power sources would not all be lost at once. There was one more reason Kagura really wanted Jin to explore this massive world on his own. Back in his era, there was no way to predict just how dangerous the corrupted beasts would become in the distant future. Still, compared to the ruined world of the past, Kagura figured this new era had to be a whole lot better. So for now, just go enjoy this new world. I won't be there to see it with you, but I hope you make the most of it. It is up to you now. Everything depends on you, Jin. By the end of the message, Kagura looked visibly aged, clearly reaching the absolute end of his life. Even though he also used hibernation, his sleep was constantly interrupted by his heavy research duties, which meant his body still aged and ultimately reached its end. Jin felt incredibly lost. He was pretty lonely, quietly mourning the sudden loss of his dearest old friend. While he was busy listening to the final words Kagura left behind, meanwhile, remember that red-haired girl who secretly spied on Jin earlier? She's already reporting his raw power directly to her superior. As the cube hologram faded, Hakama and Denpo finally located him, calling out that they had finally found their guardian deity. Catching their breath, the two kids grabbed Jin, saying everyone was desperately looking for him now. They urged him to return quickly, since the celebration simply could not start without him. Jin was never a party person, but he remembered Kagura advising him to enjoy this new era. Plus, while they were tugging at him, Jin noticed a golden key hanging around Hakama's neck, likely the access key to the facility, which prompted him to ask about it. When asked where she got that pendant, she excitedly explained that her family had received this treasure from a great figure a very long time ago. She mentioned it was a protective amulet passed down through many generations. According to legend, if their village was ever in grave danger, this item would guide their guardian protector to save them, the girl added cheerfully. Everything finally clicked for Jin, explaining exactly how Hakama was somehow able to get inside the hidden base. Whether that legendary benefactor was actually Kagura or not, it was undeniably Hakama who had played the key role in freeing him. It looked like he owed this small village a pretty massive favor. By the time Jin returned, the Kodama villagers had already gathered together to start a massive bonfire, while Denpo and Hakama both grabbed his sleeves, constantly pulling him forward. The moment Jin showed up, he drew dozens of curious stares and hushed whispers from the crowd. They doubted he was their guardian, asking if this was some kind of joke. To them, he looked like a completely ordinary, scrawny outsider, making them wonder how a guy that thin could actually take down a massive beast. A small group of young men huddled in a corner, drinking and tossing pretty harsh insults directly at Jin. Until now, Sax suddenly stood right in front of them. What a massive shift from this morning. Now, Sax is playing the righteous knight, teaching these gossiping idiots a brutal lesson for talking trash about Jin. He does not hold back, and after handing out a heavy no clue. You were too busy running for your miserable lives. Our god, that legendary guardian, actually possesses some incredibly mind-blowing power. Jin and the two children standing on this side witnessed the entire spectacle firsthand. Jin just chuckles helplessly while Hakama pouts. Wow, talk about a complete 180-degree flip. A total stranger. That is who he seems like compared to this morning. So, you are here? An old voice suddenly calls out from behind Jin. Turning around, they see Hakama's grandmother and father. The moment the villagers spot her, they all respectfully greet her as the village chief, but both of them show an incredibly deep, absolute respect when speaking directly with Jin. Please allow me to speak on behalf of the villagers once more. We want to send you our deepest, most sincere gratitude. If you had not shown up just in time, this entire village would have definitely been wiped off the map. We truly want to repay this massive favor, she and her son say in an incredibly earnest voice. Do not worry about it, Jin replies. After all, he did not save them just to get a reward. Still, if they truly want to repay him, He actually has something he needs help with. No wealth. What Jin actually wants is pure information. He wants to know detailed facts about the current state of this world. Hearing this, Hakama's grandmother suggests that Jin should head to the imperial capital. That is the seat of the king who rules over this kingdom of Kormosha. People from all over the kingdom gather there, so they will definitely have a much better grasp of world news than this tiny, isolated village. She adds that their Kodama villagers also travel to the imperial capital regularly to trade a special silk woven from woodworms. Though the journey is long and filled with danger, she believes that with Jin's incredible power, he will not face any major issues. No clue. I do not know the way, Jin shrugs. Well, that is quite easy to solve. Hakama's grandmother suggests letting the girl act as his guide. After all, she has some personal business of her own to handle in the capital. Wait, what? Personal business? Jin asks. Surely you have witnessed her power, guardian deity. This child actually has the ability to use divine power. In the imperial capital, there is an academy dedicated to training and developing that holy strength. We had almost given up hope because of the recent chaos, but I still hope she can enroll just as we originally planned. Hearing this from Hakama's grandmother, Jin is quite surprised. He assumed this era was pretty backward. But it turns out, formal schools actually still exist here. But before Jin can even agree, get ready for this. Sax cuts right in, no longer causing trouble but desperate to snatch the slot to guide their guardian god. Sax, you do not have any business in the imperial capital, the chief says. Huge plans. I am going to join the ranks of the holy knights in the capital, he replies boastfully. Hakama's grandmother bursts out laughing because Sax couldn't even pass the academy's basic entrance exam. Yet he is dreaming of joining that legendary group. Exposed in front of everyone, Sax gets pretty embarrassed and starts snapping back. Jin, now quite curious, asks another question. Do they not just admit anyone with divine power? Is there a written exam too? Hakama explains the situation. An idiot. That is why Sax completely failed his exam. Ah, I see. Jin nods along. Even without knowing what that organization is, the name Holy Knights sounds pretty awesome, so Jin is naturally quite curious. Now, let's check in on what that red-haired, glasses-wearing girl is up to. Right now, she is reporting everything she witnessed in Kodama village directly to a remarkably handsome blonde youth. After hearing her report, the guy seems quite thoughtful. He originally assumed that without a holy knight, nobody could possibly take down that beast. No orders. That is exactly why he set off alone without waiting for the guild. Who would have thought some random stranger would just pop out of nowhere and clean up the entire mess? Pure luck. He never expected to meet a holy knight out here in this remote wilderness. Talk about a coincidence. The girl keeps rambling on, completely unaware that she is being ambushed from behind. Luckily, that blonde youth is incredibly quick, taking down the enemy with a single, swift sword strike. After slicing that monster clean in half, he calmly sheaths his sword and speaks with absolute ease. If what you are telling me is actually true, then this has gotten quite interesting. Even I am starting to feel pretty excited about going to meet this person. On his second day, after waking up, Jin feels incredibly refreshed. Last night, he had a truly peaceful sleep in Kodama village. Waking up to the fresh air and birds singing, everything feels like a beautiful dream to him. Jin never expected he would one day witness such a lush and peaceful scene with his own eyes. He suddenly feels a wave of regret that his friend Kagura cannot enjoy this with him. Seeing that he is awake, Sandy brings some clothes into the room. The shy kid hands over the clothes Lord Guardian. Here is your outfit. Please put them on. Once dressed, Jin gets ready to leave. The chief, Hakama's father, and the local kids all gather to say goodbye. Her grandmother keeps nagging Hakama to be the perfect guide. Meanwhile, Zack stands off to the side, pouting like a frustrated kid. Man, I really thought I would get to learn some cool stuff by staying near the guardian deity. The kid's basically grounded at home, which explains the attitude. Smiling, Jin walks over to break the ice. You are Zack, right? Your movement techniques yesterday were actually pretty solid. I will be waiting for you in the royal capital. And check this out. Zack instantly goes from treating Jin like trash to worshipping him like a literal god. All his frustration vanishes instantly. Fired up with sudden motivation, Zack loudly promises to train his heart out so they can meet again in the capital very soon. Meanwhile, Hakama's father tightly grasps Jin's hand, sincerely begging him to look after his precious little girl on the road. Then, he turns to his daughter Hakama. Just make sure you stay safe and healthy out there. No matter how emotional the send-off is, it is finally time to go. While the villagers stay behind, Jin and Hakama set off on their long journey to the royal capital. She's quite the chatterbox, keeping the conversation flowing so Jin does not get bored for even a single second. The two of them walk down an endless dirt road. When night falls, they build a campfire. Jin asks how much further it is to the royal capital. Munching on her food, Hakama estimates they have about 4 more days of walking left. In an era with such basic transportation, a 5-day trek is actually considered pretty close. Hey, Lord Guardian. Hakama suddenly turns to look at him with incredibly curious eyes, asking why exactly he wants to learn about this new world. It is a secret, he replies, knowing it is impossible to explain his real situation to a young kid. The corrupted beasts from his own era are still running wild. Kagura had warned him about this, but now it is fully confirmed. He has witnessed it with his own eyes. It is undeniable truth. But here is the major catch. Those monsters normally only multiply in heavily polluted areas. Yet the air in this new era is incredibly clean. This contradiction makes him absolutely certain that something strange is happening behind the scenes. Jin gets so completely lost in his own thoughts that his expression turns dead serious, forcing Hakama to complain that he looks downright terrifying. Sorry about that, he says, snapping out of it. I was just focused on some complicated things. Looking at her innocent, curious face gives him a rare sense of comfort in this strange future. At least humanity survived, and they are not enslaved by those corrupted beasts. That fact alone makes this world something worth fighting to protect with everything he has got. But to do that, his first priority is figuring out how the local humans actually fight off these creatures. He can analyze the corrupted beasts later, but right now, Hakama breaks his focus by asking what she should actually call him. Calling him Lord Guardian is way too long, she notes. This kid really is a non-stop question machine. Just call me Jin, he says. Lord Jin, she replies. But he insists on dropping the formal titles. Jin is a literal god to her people, but since he insisted, she gladly drops the honorifics. Just like that, the ice between them melts a little bit more. Wait, do you hear that? The sudden, loud thundering of horse hooves echoes nearby, instantly catching their full attention. Jin instantly goes on high alert as the lead rider stops his horse just a few feet away and speaks up first. Apologies for disrupting your quiet night, but could I trouble you for a brief moment? Jin looks up. He sees a strikingly handsome warrior with sharp eyes and flowing blonde hair, looking like he walked straight out of a royal court. Jin casually asks who he is. We are the Holy Knights of the royal capital, and I captain the 7th Division. My name is August Anton. Jin just nods, realizing these are the famous Holy Knights. Zack had hyped them up so much back at the village, so Jin is glad to see them in person. But his casual attitude immediately ticks off one of the female knights. She grits her teeth and barks at him, demanding how a peasant dares to address their captain with such attitude. At least stand up when you greet our captain. How incredibly rude of you, Captain. These two must be the targets we are looking for. But August remains calm. Stand down, Karina. He turns to Jin with a warm, polite smile. Please forgive my rudeness for addressing you from horseback just now. Would you mind talking with me? At this, Jin finally stands up, though his attitude remains pretty cold. Jin demands to know what the girl meant by calling them their targets. August just smiles warmly, offering a polite apology for his subordinate's bad temper. First, I have a few simple questions. Where are you coming from? And where are you going next? Hakama immediately beats Jin to the punch, happily chirping that they came from Kodama village and are heading straight for the capital. The moment she hears the name Kodama village, a smug smirk spreads right across Karina's face. She hops off her horse and keeps up that incredibly arrogant attitude, but this time, it gets even worse as she pulls out her sword. I'm absolutely certain it's them, she insists, since there's no way a low-class race from Kodama village has any official birth records. Your little game is over, she sneers. You trashy, low-class duo. Her annoying attitude definitely rubs Jin the wrong way, but he's actually more surprised to hear that people here keep official birth records. Seems like this kingdom is quite tightly managed, at least compared to what they're used to. But when Agos looks closely at Hakama, he's somehow sure the girl is from Kodama, because her outfit is made from the famous, high-end silk woven in that village. Even back in the busy capital, this specific fabric sells for a crazy high price as a premium luxury item. Kodama silk tailored for children is almost never seen on the open market, so her claim of coming from that village must be true. But watch this now, it's Agos's turn to draw his weapon on Jin, simply because his clothes look so incredibly strange. He's never seen anything like it before, and has absolutely no idea which foreign country it might have come from. The real reason they're being so incredibly hostile is that the road from Kodama to the royal capital has lately been plagued by constant bandit raids, where the thieves use innocent-looking kids to steal goods, a tactic that exactly mirrors their current situation. Naturally, Agos has his doubts, prompting Hakama to quickly yell that they didn't do it. She jumps up to defend them. But why would a seasoned captain listen to a little kid? He just asks if they did it. He coldly tells them they'll be the ones to decide that. Now, Hakama can take being doubted, but she won't let anyone insult her sacred guardian deity. So she begins channeling her divine power, though unfortunately, Agos is a pretty tough opponent himself. The young girl is nowhere near strong enough to face him, and before she can even move, a dozen invisible blade points are aimed right at her. Don't even think about pulling any tricks here, he warns her. He's quite shocked she has divine power and calls her promising, while Jin quietly shifts his gaze between the two of them. So this is how a holy knight operates. Jin can tell he's genuinely strong. Now, answer me, Agos demands. Where on earth did you come from? Your next words will decide whether I take your head right here on the spot. Agos demands again, pushing the tip of his sword right against Jin's chest. But the boy just keeps his hands in his pockets, without showing any fear. And check this out. Faced with Agos's threat of decapitation, Jin's gaze turns absolutely ice cold. Humans from 100 million years in the future are seriously arrogant, Jin thinks, as Agos stares him down with intense tension. Finally, Jin lets out a quiet sigh and replies that he's from Kodama village, making Karina instantly scream that it's a blatant lie. But Agos just sheathes his sword and calmly says he understands, while she desperately begs her captain to wait up. He looks down at Hakama and asks if she's telling the truth, and the little girl nods to confirm. Hakama nervously explains that Jin is actually the guardian deity of their village, leaving Agos completely stunned in his mind by the title. He simply mutters that he sees. Then Jin asks if they are done with all their questions. Agos says yes, and as he climbs back onto his horse, he mentions having some other business to take care of. He asks them to forgive his earlier rudeness, which immediately causes a highly frustrated Karina to scream out for her captain. Ignoring her entirely, Agos asks Jin if they're also heading toward the capital, and when Jin says yes, he tells them they'll surely cross paths again, adding that if they ever run into any trouble, they should come find him. Just think of it as an apology for today's little incident, he says, while Karina keeps desperately calling out for her captain. With that, Agos turns his horse around, politely saying he won't keep them any longer. She gets incredibly furious and screams out, asking if he's actually serious about this. Jin just stands there quietly watching them ride away, while Karina's voice still echoes from a distance, begging her captain to wait up and demanding why on earth he chose to back down. Even though Agos completely ignores her, she keeps screaming that no matter how you look at it, that low-class guy is extremely suspicious. Her words make him wonder in his mind, a low-class guy. Really? He coldly replies that he's actually wondering who the weak one really is, leaving Karina utterly stunned and asking what he means. That's when Ria chimes in to agree with him, making the shocked girl turn to her and gasp that even she thinks so. Ria softly asks her sister if she really didn't notice the truth. Remembering Jin's chilling presence, Ria adds that there's a truly massive power gap between them and that mysterious man, while Agos silently admits he almost tried to fight him a few times. The memory of pointing his sword at Jin flashes back vividly because, at that exact moment, Agos's sword-wielding hand had started shaking uncontrollably. Meanwhile, a strange light suddenly starts glowing deep inside Jin's pocket. Thinking back to that brief encounter, August admits that the boy countered before they could even move. Ria channels a spark of energy in her palm and asks if the captain really had to use holy power, to which August simply nods, yes. But when he confesses that he could not even activate it properly, Karina's expression instantly darkens with pure shock and confusion. Speaking of Hakama, August explains he tried calling on the spirits just like before, but they flat out refused to lend him their strength. Ria quickly confirms facing the exact same rejection, while Karina hesitatingly asks what that even means. August explains it all points to a massive gap in their holy power, meaning the stranger pulled off an absolute miracle to block them. His face grows incredibly dark as he delivers his final verdict, stating that in their entire order, only the Grand Commander might stand a chance. Hearing those heavy words, both Karina and Ria gasp in shock. Karina clenches her fists tightly, frustrated that she felt absolutely nothing, but August explains it is because the man is an entirely abnormal entity. Plus, she is still just a fresh rookie who recently joined the squad. Riding through the thundering sound of horse hooves, Karina asks if that mysterious man is the one who destroyed the invading monster, which August highly suspects is true. Still concerned, Karina asks if they should really just let them go so easily, warning that keeping such a monster free is incredibly dangerous. He patiently reassures her, noting that although their identity is a total mystery, they do not seem to hold any bad intentions. For now, they should just keep observing them quietly. In silence, August lowers his voice. Let us head straight back to the capital since the monster threat is handled early, but we cannot delay any longer. The association can take over the bandit situation from here. Karina quickly salutes. Understood, sir. Then August advises her. He urges her to focus on building strong moral character instead of chasing raw power, while silently thinking of Kodama Village's guardian deity. Looking toward the massive castle in the distance, August silently hopes that the mysterious traveler will become their ally, his face hardening with absolute resolve. That man could easily be the golden key to solving the most dangerous crisis their kingdom is currently facing. The next morning, we find Jin and Hakama walking along together as they look back on yesterday's crazy encounter. Jin wonders if every single knight in the capital is as terrifyingly strong as those two, but Hakama quickly shakes her head. She explains that those guys are complete anomalies, picturing August's powerful image in her head as she talks. Those holy knights are an elite group handpicked from the absolute best of the entire Imperial Order, and those two are easily the finest among that legendary squad. Posing playfully, she continues to describe their truly mind-blowing spirit abilities. Their speed at summoning spirits, or rather, their entire spirit magic, is on a completely different level, prompting Jin to ask about it. Hakama patiently explains that it involves summoning spirits from various natural elements and borrowing their immense power for combat. Hearing this, he nods in understanding, while privately wondering if what they call spirits are actually just basic nanoparticles. While Hakama happily hums a tune, Jin keeps pondering how actual science has seemingly become nothing more than a myth in this era. The memory of Karina shouting at him suddenly flashes in his mind. Low-class trash. Jin quietly mutters the insulting phrase to himself. He wonders about that low-class race insult, leaving Hakama confused until Jin laughs it off, noting that this era seems to have endless unique races. The little girl happily confirms this, picturing various strange beast-like humanoids in her head as she begins to explain the details. She says some people look exactly like fish, while others have the distinct features of insects, which immediately leaves Jin totally baffled. Insect people? Jin gasps in confusion. Hakama pictures an ancient underwater world. Her grandmother used to tell her that the changes happened because their natural environments shrank massive ages ago, showing images of insect creatures. She explains that over time, everyone's bodies gradually adapted to whatever harsh environment they had to call home. Hearing this, Jin can barely believe his ears, muttering to himself about rapid evolution driven purely by environmental changes. Deep down, he starts questioning if some ancient humans actually survived from 100 million years ago, only to gradually evolve into these bizarre and alien-looking forms. Realizing that overthinking is totally useless right now, Jin asks if the people who did not adapt are labeled as low class for that exact reason. She nods quietly. Yes, against a backdrop of strict social classes, Hakama goes on to explain that society heavily despises these low-class citizens simply because they failed to adapt to their environment. According to her analysis, it turns out that almost every poor soul sold into slavery belongs to those exact same unevolved races. And this is where the dark truth hits. Jin slavery is still very much alive in this world. Speaking with immense maturity, Hakama goes on to explain that in actual reality, there really is no major difference between them at all. They are just slightly different from the crowd. Yet people treat them like absolute garbage, causing her to sigh in heavy frustration at how deeply unfair it is. Seeing this, Jin smiles gently and praises Hakama, calling her a truly good kid. Suddenly, a pair of legs appears right in front of them. Faint cries for help catch their attention, and it is Poweroo. The young girl collapses, completely unable to stand. Hakama rushes over and screams, asking if she is okay, but then she stops and gasps in shock at those strange ears. This catches Jin's eye too, making him lean in closer. Poweroo is completely out of strength now, barely gasping for breath on the ground. Staring closely at the young girl's ears, Jin mutters that they look incredibly strange. Hakama gently rolls Poweroo onto her back as she struggles to breathe. Standing over them, Jin silently examines her, noting that her body is covered in deep bruises, and these injuries are incredibly severe. She carefully helps her sit up, worriedly asking if she is going to be okay. Jin channels healing energy into his hand, telling her to hold on just a bit longer so he can treat her injuries right now. Suddenly, Poweru's expression turns sharp and hostile. She screams out, catching Jin completely off guard, telling him not to take a single step. Talk about a sudden betrayal. Poweru instantly presses a blade against Hakuma's neck, threatening to end her life if Jin moves. The air turns freezing cold. Jin immediately realizes what is actually going on, realizing this whole thing was a setup. Looking straight at Poweru, Jin calmly speaks up, admitting they carelessly walked right into her trap. He quickly scans their dark surroundings, realizing this setup means her partners are definitely lurking nearby. Right on cue, a mysterious figure begins to slowly emerge from the distance. Jin watches him approach, realizing someone is indeed working in perfect coordination with this girl. The man slowly speaks, praising Poweru for a job well done. It is Brown, arriving with the rest of his gang. He commends her for following his orders to the absolute letter. Watching them, Jin immediately recognizes the stealth camouflage technology they are using. As he breaks down how this skill works, he analyzes that it records the surrounding environment, using microscopic nanoparticles to bend the light and make the user appear completely invisible. Even facing this extreme threat, Jin remains remarkably calm, thinking to himself that, while movement usually ruins the cloaking effect, these guys are operating it with absolute. Brown points his sharp sword directly at Jin, mocking him for wearing such a fancy outfit despite being a lowly creature. What country do you even come from? Noticing Jin shift slightly, Brown warns him to stay perfectly still and not do anything stupid. Seeing this, Hakama screams out for Lord Jin. Brown threatens that he knows exactly what will happen if he acts rashly. Hakama begins channeling spiritual energy into her hand to fight back, but Jin immediately barks out a warning to stop her. His voice makes Hakama instantly freeze in her tracks. Jin gently reminds her that her sacred power was never meant to harm humans, and she should already know that. Hakama cries out in utter disbelief, but Brown suddenly turns to his boss, shouting that they just hit the ultimate jackpot because the little girl possesses actual divine power. Henry steps forward and demands to know if Jin can use that power too. Jin casually shrugs it off, which infuriates Henry. Screaming in rage, Henry suddenly delivers a brutal kick right to the boy's stomach. Hakama screams out in terror, but Henry just sneers, telling Jin not to act so smug when he is just a lowly piece of trash. Brown warns him to watch out and not damage their precious merchandise, but Henry casually dismisses it, pointing out that a lowly slave like him won't fetch much money anyway. Glancing back at Poweru holding the blade, Brown asks what they should do if these captives actually possess divine power. Henry snorts confidently, declaring there is no way such low-life trash could ever hold that kind of sacred power. Hakama grits her teeth in sheer anger, realizing with growing fear that these men must be the notorious bandits the Holy Knight warned her about. The vile mud people. Brown suddenly fires a bolt of lightning straight at Hakama, telling her it is time to go to sleep for a while. As the electricity surges toward her, Hakama desperately thinks that if they allow themselves to be captured like this, the lightning closing in on her face, she panics, realizing they will both end up being sold off as helpless slaves. Darkness swallows everything, but hang on. Jin's voice suddenly echoes through the void, urging her to wake up as the scene completely shifts. Jin calls out to her in a panic, and Hakama snaps awake in terror, only to find themselves trapped inside a cold metal cage. He asks if she is hurt anywhere, and she assures him she is perfectly fine, though she immediately notices something far more pressing. Staring at the crowds of captured prisoners around them, she asks him where on earth they have been locked up. Jin answers calmly, explaining that they are currently inside the hideout of the bandits who captured them. Watching the crowded cages nearby, he notes that it seems every single person these bandits have kidnapped is being held captive right here in this very chamber. The prisoners are all badly bruised and starving to the bone. In a nearby cage, a young elf girl huddles in the corner with tears streaming down her face. Both of them sit in silence, taking in the grim sight. But then, Hakama blushes and asks why he is currently completely naked. With a weird sense of pride, Jin explains that they stripped him naked because his modern clothes looked way too bizarre. Jin mutters that at least they left him his underwear. Hakama sighs with a tired face, asking why he does not seem worried about this at all. He slowly replies that he spent most of his past life half-naked anyway, so this is nothing new. The young girl asks curiously, putting that bizarre detail aside, why did he not even bother to fight back earlier? Hakama remains completely confused, pointing out that with his massive strength, he could have easily wiped them out. Meanwhile, Lord Jin just stands there, looking lost in deep thought. Right then, the heavy door swings wide open as two figures step inside, one telling the other to finish this quickly. Both Jin and Hakama turn their heads, Poweroo walks in carrying a plate of snacks, asking if he has been awake this whole time. Spotting her, Hakama instantly explodes in rage. Poweroo calmly sets the plate down, coldly stating that she does not care if they hate her for what she did. The young girl stands tall and looks at them coldly, saying she never expected to be forgiven in the first place. This cold attitude makes Hakama even more furious. She grips the iron bars tightly, gritting her teeth in anger. Suddenly, Jin speaks up in a low voice, calling her truly merciful. Poweroo is shocked by this, while Jin adds that a real villain would act differently. Jin confidently adds that a true villain would never waste their precious time worrying about whether they are hated or forgiven by anyone. With that, he stands straight up and calmly declares that it is time to begin. Watch this. Jin grabs the heavy iron bars with raw force. Poweroo gasps as he easily snaps the cage wide open. He casually steps out and dusts off his hands. While Hakama follows him in disbelief, Jin calmly adds that he has been waiting for her. Down here, there is absolutely nobody around to eavesdrop on their private conversation. Poweroo wonders why he was waiting. Cutting straight to the point, Jin asks where those bastards are holding the person most important to her. This shocking question makes the young girl break out in a cold sweat. She asks in disbelief how he could possibly know that. Jin summons a brilliant spark of energy into his hand and simply replies that it was just a hunch. Bringing the energy close to her face, he whispers that she actually fooled him at first, since those nasty bruises on her were very real. Within seconds, the painful wounds covering Poweroo's body begin to fade away completely. Jin explains that even the worst villains would not beat their own comrades this brutally just to use them as bait. That is how he saw through the trick. Jin adds in a gentle voice that she is only obeying because they used violence to force her into compliance. Hearing this sharp deduction, Poweroo is left absolutely stunned. Looking down, she squeezes her hands together in deep anxiety. Poweroo chokes back tears and admits that her younger brother was kidnapped by them. Recalling the terrifying moment her family was cornered, she struggles to speak before crying out in agony that her parents were brutally murdered by those absolute monsters. Tears streaming down her face, she quietly whispers she had to save her brother no matter what. That was the only reason she went along with their twisted plans. Hakama falls silent, while Jin's face darkens with pure rage. Gritting his teeth, he curses the absolute trash. As Hakama speaks up, she asks if he let himself get captured on purpose just to rescue them. Jin replies, that was part of the plan, but he smirks and says in a low voice that villains are incredibly stubborn pests. They are like stubborn grease stains. Poweroo asks what he means by grease as the guards patrol outside while Jin explains his point to her. If you let even one escape, they will just multiply and bring more endless chaos down the line. As his voice echoes, he states that they must be wiped out. Meanwhile, strange banging noises from inside the cell leave the guard utterly confused. With a single powerful kick, Jin blasts the heavy cell door open, sending the guard flying backward. The guard crashes to the floor, while Jin stands over him, radiating absolute bloodlust. Here's the scary part: Jin's eyes flash as he growls to pull weeds by the roots, leaving zero trace behind. They must be thoroughly and brutally eliminated. Flashback to 1 billion years ago, where busy streets were crowded with traffic under dazzling city lights. A young, dirt-covered Jin stands perfectly still, silently taking in the magnificent and glamorous scenery. Watching a heroic figure on the news, he notes that he, too, had always yearned to bring true justice to the world. Just then, a vehicle speeds toward Jin as quiet footsteps slowly sneak up behind him. However, the kid senses danger instantly and darts a quick look to his side. A world still begging for justice. Looking at those massive, tough-looking thugs, Jin realized this world is actually filled with human garbage, and they are constantly multiplying in every single corner. A giant thug grabs Jin by the collar and lifts him up. At that moment, he quietly thinks that a normal life would have been absolute heaven. Even in this highly dangerous situation, Jin's calm expression never wavers for a second. But the world he grew up in never allowed for peace. That is when Jin fought his way out. Next thing you know, the giant is clutching his horribly broken arm in absolute agony, while Jin just walks away. He completely crushed them. As Jin grew older, his crusade never stopped. He hunted down evil everywhere, showing zero mercy as he dragged them into the dirt and wiped them out. After wiping the floor with every last villain, Jin sat proudly right on top of their piled-up corpses. Then, one day, a mysterious figure approached him. Sensing their presence, Jin slowly looked up to see who it was. Kagura reached out, saying he was born in the wrong world. Back in the present, Jin drags a guard along. 2 guards block him. Stop right now. Looking at their fallen allies on the floor, They scream, "What do you want?" They point at their bloody comrade in the corner, demanding to know how he managed to sneak in here. Jin just smirks silently. Then, tossing one guard forward, he forces the other sentry to quickly catch the flying body. Now watch this. Jin instantly closes the distance, leaving the guard frozen in absolute, pure terror, staring at his completely crushed allies. The guard screams out in panic, "You bastard! Who the hell are you anyway?" Jin says nothing and just steps closer, forcing the terrified guard to collapse to the floor. Suddenly, a barrage of brutal, agonizing screams echoes, leaving the near. Recognizing those screams, Poweru turns to her companion in total shock. "What kind of monster are you traveling with anyway?" Hakama calmly responds that Jin is a guardian deity. Poweru can only gasp, "A guardian deity?" Hakama confidently nods, confirming his status. "Just leave everything to Lord Jin," she says. "He is going to handle this easily." She starts walking away, turning back to add, "For now, we do exactly as Lord Jin ordered and get everyone out of here." But Poweru still has her doubts, wondering if they can really escape. Thinking of their enemy, Brown, she shivers, but that guy is different. She grits her teeth, knowing Brown possesses an overwhelming amount of holy magic. There is no way Jin can defeat someone like that with raw muscle alone. Meanwhile, a panicked Brown is desperately screaming, "Wait!" He just watched Jin effortlessly hoist a massive guard into the air. Terrified, Brown shrieks, "What do you want? Is it money?" Instantly backtracking. Brown stutters, pointing desperately to the iron cage holding young Nino. "Or do you want slaves? I can give you slaves." While the young boy looks on in confusion, Brown screams his desperate bargain, "I will give you as many as you want." Jin slowly glances toward the cage, drops the guard, and growls, "Are you finally done listing your pathetic demands?" Brown breaks out in a cold sweat, trembling as he wonders what on earth is happening here. Facing Jin's terrifying, murderous aura, Brown panics internally. Why is my legendary holy magic completely useless against this guy? As Jin steps closer, Brown backs away, utterly baffled. What kind of monstrous, otherworldly power is this monster hiding? Jin sneers, looking down at him. "You are just a cheap, third-rate villain. The real dangerous bosses? They would have realized the danger and fled immediately. But trash like you always starts by looking down on everyone, acting completely convinced that victory is already yours." Brown can only cower in fear as Jin delivers the harsh truth. The second you face actual defeat, you resort to begging like a pathetic dog. Gritting his teeth, Brown curses silently before turning to bolt. If it has come to this, he realizes he has no other choice left. Brown rushes over and slams a lever down, screaming out, "This is not over yet, not by a long shot. You won't believe what's behind that heavy gate." A massive cage holding a colossal beast with bulging muscles. Even Jin's expression shifts slightly at the sight of it. Brown laughs, screaming that he acquired this monster specifically for a special client. He unlocks the cage, letting the colossal beast step free. Since negotiations failed, he sneers, "I guess we have to do this the hard way." Brown grins maliciously, shouting that he is going to make Jin suffer, just as the massive beast lets out an earth-shattering, terrifying roar. The beast swings its massive fist downward, with terrifying force. Jin locks his gaze on the threat, completely focused. Jin swiftly raises his bare hands, catching the crushing blow. Witnessing this, Brown's eyes widen in pure, unadulterated shock. Holding back the beast's attack, Jin grunts, "You see, I was born with a rather extraordinary body." Veins bulge across his entire body, as he explains that he has far more muscle density than any normal human. With a sudden surge, Jin unleashes a devastating, bone-shattering kick. Straight into the monster is sent flying backward from the impact. Jin begins gathering a massive surge of energy in his hand, coldly warning that he has zero mercy for the corrupt. With those words, Jin unleashes a surging, massive wave of energy, revealing that he can also wield holy power. Watching the giant beast get absolutely obliterated into tiny pieces, a terrified Brown collapses to the floor, whispering, "This guy." Jin slowly steps right up to Brown. The villain trembles, wondering how a mere human can wield holy magic, as Jin finally speaks. "So tell me." Jin looks down with freezing, merciless eyes, asking, "What exactly do you plan on doing next?" Brown's sweating bullets, his voice shaking, "Can you?" Then, putting on a fake, pathetic act, he squeaks, "Could you just look the other way and let me off this once?" Before he can finish, Jin levels him with a devastating punch and growls, "I can't." A moment later, he slips back into his own clothes and sighs, "All right." Leaving a completely battered Brown behind, he walks away, muttering, "Finally got my clothes back." Jin looks over at the iron cage and softens his voice, "I'm really sorry, but please hang in there a little longer." He reassures them, I'm going to get every single one of you out of here very soon. The kids instantly look relieved. Jin walks over to a desk, scanning some documents as he continues. But first, I have to dig into a few things. It won't do us any good if we don't gather solid proof of their horrific crimes. He pulls a drawer open and spots some documents inside. Jin takes them out, staring at them in deep thought. This looks incredibly suspicious. On the paper is a strange, confusing symbol. Seeing this, he smirks. I get it now. Jin stares at the bizarre markings, completely lost. What on earth is this writing even trying to say? I can't read a single word of this. He looks around at the chaotic room, muttering, guess I'll have to get Hakama to teach me how to read this era's language. Jin squats down, touching the weird slime on the floor, wondering still, what do they actually plan to do with all these captured beastified humans? Now, watch this. He casts his magic on it, absolutely determined to uncover the truth. Instantly, multiple holographic screens flare to life around him. Jin murmurs, I'll tap into the camera feeds from the nanos floating nearby. He sits in silence, whispering to himself any footage from the past week should still be archived in this feed. Suddenly, Jin's eyes widen in shock. The screen replays the moment Sabian and Brown stood right in front of a massive monster. Brown asks, but sir, what do you plan to do with such a massive catch? Sabian growls back, that's none of your concern. Sabian flashes a wicked, sinister smile and continues, though, I suppose I can let you in on one little secret. His face twists into pure evil as he declares, very soon, this country is going to host a highly entertaining event. Staring at the screen, Jin watches with a dark, heavy expression. The scene shifts to the quiet streets outside, where the victims are being escorted to safety while the bad guys are dragged away. Hakama and Powaru watch anxiously from the sidelines. Suddenly, Powaru's eyes light up as she spots a familiar face. It's her little brother, Nino. The boy runs forward, crying out, big sister. Powaru screams his name and tears instantly bursting from her eyes. She rushes to hug him. They hold each other, sobbing. Powaru whispers, thank heavens. Then, turning to Jin with tearful eyes, she cries, sir, thank you so much. Jin waves his hand modestly. I am no god, so please don't sweat it. He continues, by the way, let me ask you. Looking over at the guards hauling the bandits away, Jin asks, are those soldiers the subordinates of this region's lord? Hakama quickly shakes her head. Oh, no, they aren't, sir. They're actually from the guild. I'm the one who called them. Pointing to Padaraku directing the guards, she adds, the man standing right over there is our town's guild leader. Jin murmurs, is that so? Suddenly, Padaraku glances over. He slowly walks over to Jin and asks, are you the one who took care of this entire situation? Jin nods, that's right. Padaraku introduces himself with deep respect. My name is Padaraku, leader of the guild. Please accept my deepest gratitude for stepping in to help. He then studies Jin with a quiet, analytical gaze, taking down that entire mob without sustaining a single scratch. His appearance suggests he belongs to some lower-tier race, but my absolute gut instinct says Padaraku is still lost in his thoughts. There is absolutely no way this youth is ordinary. Shaking off those thoughts, he speaks up. We have been getting flooded with reports about the destruction from this crime wave. The guild has received countless requests to wipe out these bandits. Jin raises an eyebrow. So, the local lord wasn't the one who deployed soldiers to capture them? Padaraku lowers his voice. You must be joking, my friend. A mere local lord does not have that kind of high-level authority. Recalling how the commoners used to kneel before the nobility, he explains the only ones authorized to deal with criminals like this are us guild members, who swear direct loyalty. Padaraku dismissively waves his hand, adding, even if our local lord, Lord Sabian, were to break the law, we are still legally obligated to report him to the king. Though, a scandal like that would never actually happen. Hearing this, Jin translates the terms in his head. In his old world from 100 million years ago, a lord is basically a mayor, while the guild acts as the police. Sabian's sinister face flashes in his mind, and trust me, there is definitely something off about him. Snapping back, he hands Padaraku a scroll of recovered documents. I managed to grab this from one of their men. Do you think this can help you? Staring at the scroll, his face twists in pure shock as he gasps, what is this? Holding the documents in his hand, Padaraku speaks with absolute certainty. This is the list of everyone making backroom deals with the bandits. With this in our hands, we can sweep them all up in one go. But wait, is the local lord's name actually on this list? He quickly adds that it was just a joke, and of course the lord's name isn't there. Hearing this, Jin frowns, realizing this guy is a highly calculated villain. Staring thoughtfully at Powaru and her sibling, Jin mutters that he can't do anything right now. But more importantly, there is something else. Stroking Nino's head, Jin asks about the freed slaves. What is going to happen to them and their future? Todoroki explains that if their families filed a search request or their identities are verified, the guild will send them home. Noticing the heavy sadness on the kids' faces, Todoroki speaks softly, admitting that for anyone who does not fit those categories, they really cannot do anything to help. This makes Jin uneasy. He remembers that these two siblings have already lost both of their parents, so he asks if there are any shelters or orphanages around here. The man quickly replies, "Not at all. We only act as middle management to help them find work." But Todoroki points out a harsh reality, explaining that because these kids belong to a lower race. Jin lets out a heavy, tired sigh. He desperately wants to help them out, but looking at Poweroo and Nino, he realizes the grim truth. If no one is willing to hire them, surviving will be almost impossible. But wait, here's where his mind starts racing. He looks at them and asks, "If there is a place where you can both work, would you go?" Hearing this, Poweroo immediately beams with hope, saying yes, absolutely. She asks if he already has a specific place in mind. Jin just smiles, suddenly remembering how Argos told him to come find him if he ever ran into any trouble. With a sharp look in his eyes, Jin confidently assures them that he knows the perfect place for them to go. Cut to the massive estate of Argos in the capital of Camosia, where a group of riders is arriving. Suddenly, Argos shivers violently. Seeing this, Jin asks with concern if something is wrong. "No, it is nothing," he replies. "I just suddenly felt a cold shiver down my spine." Argos slowly dismounts. He turns back and tells them this is far enough. Looking at everyone, Argos expresses his gratitude, saying their long expedition is finally over, and they should get some well-deserved rest. With that, he slowly makes his way inside the mansion. Seeing Argos, the servants bow respectfully, welcoming their master back. Handing his bag to the butler, he asks if there are any new reports to look over. The butler remains quiet, only casting a brief look toward a visibly flustered maid. Sensing something is off, Argos exhales softly and asks if something happened while he was away. Bowing low, the butler apologizes for bothering him when he must be deeply exhausted, but Argos tells him not to worry. The butler then leans in to whisper some news. Up on the balcony, someone is watching the entire scene. It is Milia, staring down at them with a dark, unreadable expression. Once the conversation ends, Argos waves his hand, thanking the butler for keeping him informed. The butler bows, saying it is his duty. But beneath Argos's calm exterior lies deep exhaustion. Sighing heavily, he realizes the situation is far worse than he initially feared. Picturing a monstrous beast rampaging through the streets, Argos wonders if an intruder has actually managed to infiltrate the capital. How on earth did it even get in here? And trust me, things are about to get even darker. He realizes someone must have let it in on purpose. Thinking about the powerful factions running Hanek's academy, he finds it highly suspicious how they strictly forbid anyone without official business from setting foot inside the camp. He quickly decides that he needs to find some reliable allies, and fast. Meanwhile, we cut back to Jin as he makes his way along with Poweroo and Nino. 3 days have passed since they wiped out the bandits, and they are now leisurely walking together. Poweroo anxiously asks if there is truly a job suitable for someone like her in a massive city like the capital. He reassures her not to worry. Jin points out that she already knows how to read and write quite well. Plus, her math skills are pretty solid, so she is bound to find a decent job somewhere. Encouraging her to have more confidence in her own abilities, Jin smiles as the young girl happily nods in agreement. Suddenly, Hakama calls out to Jin to look ahead. When Jin looks up, his jaw drops in absolute shock. Standing before them is a massive, bustling city overflowing with people. Jin asks, in wonder if this is the capital of the kingdom. As they enter, they are greeted by endless crowds filling the busy streets. Poweroo looks around in absolute awe of how lively it is. Pointing toward the shops, Hakama explains that the capital relies heavily on imported goods, which is why rare treasures from every region end up here. The girl adds that folks from Kodama village often travel all this way just to sell their specialties. Jin speaks up too. He admits he has actually heard about that before. Spotting some insect-like people, he silently marvels, "I see, what an interesting place. An insect tribe, huh?" Glancing around at the others, Jin wonders if there are mermen here too. He quietly figures that with so many different races and civilizations gathering in one spot, it makes total sense they would experience such unique and rapid development. Looking over at a busy shop, the merchant loudly calls out that these items are imported straight from the neighboring kingdom. He also notices just how incredibly clean the city is kept. Seeing kids playing safely, Jin figures the security here must be pretty solid. But suddenly, his gaze turns sharp as he looks off to the side, and yet, right around the corner, a group of poor merchants are kneeling helplessly before a wealthy noble. Seeing this, Jin realizes that no matter the era, there will always be deep issues like this. Shaking it off, he turns to Hakama and asks when her school semester actually starts. The girl replies next week, while Milia silently begins tailing them from the shadows. Walking ahead, Jin Shen says, Hakama. She sneers to herself, completely mocking the idea of a little kid traveling with some guy from a low-class race. Later on, Jin and the group arrive at an inn. Once inside, Hakama and Nino immediately jump onto the bed with excitement. He slowly says with relief that they have finally found a decent place to rest, and Hakama eagerly agrees with him. Jin lies down, thinking to himself that they have finally reached their destination, the royal capital. What should his next step be? Holding his pouch of gold, he mutters that he needs cash to survive here, and guys, his funds are looking pretty low. Remembering when he received the reward for his achievements, Jin thinks that even though they got cash for taking down the bandits, that money is going to run out eventually. Plus, he still has to share a portion of that reward with the freed slaves. Looking at the two Poweru siblings, he also realizes he needs to find them some stable work. Remembering the face of Agos, Jin worries that finding this young man is his best bet. But without someone to introduce him, he knows it will be nearly impossible to meet right away. Thinking of this, Jin suddenly looks out towards the window. Standing up, he figures he should start by doing a thorough investigation into the corrupted beings of this era. Visualizing Sapien's sinister grin, Jin silently wonders if someone is plotting to use those monsters for their own dark purposes. Stepping closer to the window, he resolves that these corrupted beasts are a massive threat that cannot be allowed to roam free. He stares far down into the streets below, watching the crowds below, as he vows to himself that he will never let that horrific apocalypse happen to this world ever again. Turning back to the room, he asks Hakama what the locals in this country usually do when they want to research or learn about a certain topic. She quickly answers that they would find someone to ask, seek out a teacher, or read books. But she warns him that books in this capital are incredibly expensive to buy. Back in Kodama village, we had to share just a few precious books that were very hard to get. She suggests that the capital has a massive public library, where he can easily search for any information he needs. He asks with surprise, is there actually a library here? Looking quite pleased, Jin realizes this is absolutely perfect. He will definitely make full use of that place, hoping to find any clues about the research facility left behind by Kagura. But when they arrive, the receptionist politely tells them she is very sorry, but he is not allowed to use the library. She explains that since these books are considered national assets, they cannot let just anyone enter the building. Hearing this, the group is completely disappointed. The receptionist adds that entry is strictly restricted to elite students recognized by the academy, official teachers, and the high nobles living right here in the capital. Jin sighs. That explains it. That is when Hakama points out that he does not even know how to read yet. Shocked, Jin mutters to himself that she is right. He remembers taking a break on their journey here, drawing simple symbols on the dirt. Even though the group has been teaching him lately, it will still take some time before he can actually master reading. Now he is clutching his head, wondering what his next move is, but look out. Trouble has already found them. Two shady men step up. One asks if that is them, and the other confirms it is the low-class peasant traveling with those kids. They confront Jin, asking if he has a moment. Suddenly, Green throws a heavy punch straight at Jin, but Jin quickly caught his incoming punch. He growled, "Did you say just a little?" Quite a unique way of greeting, isn't it? Channeling power into his hand, Jin added, "And here I thought security in this city was supposed to be excellent." Green's hand began to glow with spiritual energy. He let go, and a massive burst of force shot straight into the sky. Check this out. A massive explosion rocks the sky, drawing everyone's eyes. Yet Green remains completely unfazed, mocking Jin's sharp instincts with a smug grin. Poweru watched in anger, thinking how dare they use divine power right in the middle of the city. Jin calmly looked at them and asked, "Can you tell me what your goal actually is?" Green sneered, "Someone important finds you guys to be quite an eyesore." Jin frowned, realizing someone had hired these thugs to come after them. But then Jin smirked, feeling rather smug. "Whatever. This is actually playing out exactly the way I wanted." Green demanded arrogantly, "If you leave this capital right now, you won't have to worry about being threatened every single day. Get it?" Jin confidently replied, "Once things actually get dangerous around here, I'll consider doing that." "Is that so?" Green sneered, swinging his fist. But Jin instantly caught his hand, leaving Green completely shocked by the reflex. In a flash, Jin slammed him down. Green's eyes rolled back as he shrieked in agony, seeing his partner get wrecked. Boom channeled spiritual energy into his fist and screamed, "You total bastard." The fiery blast shot toward Jin's back as he walked away, but he casually dodged it. Boom smirked, thinking he actually had him. No warning. Through the smoke, Jin suddenly closed the distance, grabbing Boom's collar and hoisting him up. Jin growled with a chilling challenge, "If you actually want to threaten me properly, come back when you've gotten stronger." Eyes dripping with pure bloodlust, Jin coldly added, "And that's assuming you even have the guts to face me again." Overwhelmed by this terrifying aura, a pale-faced Boom desperately wondered, isn't this guy supposed to be some low-class trash? Suddenly, a harsh voice rang out, "Freeze. Nobody move." It was Karina, grumbling to herself seriously. "I can't even catch a break on my day off." Fighting in the middle of the street? She pointed her sword at them and shouted, "I'll throw every single one of you in jail, so get ready." Hearing that, Jin dropped Boom and muttered, "Well, looks like causing a bit of a scene actually paid off in the end." Recognizing him, Karina gasped in utter shock, "Wait, aren't you that low-class guy from the other day?" Total shock. Karina pointed her finger straight at him, and here we go, she actually smirks, amusement in her eyes, mockingly praising his sheer guts for starting trouble the second he arrived. Karina raised her voice, "Trash, like you always stays trash. You need to learn some boundaries and know what you can and can't do." Right then, a bystander nearby suddenly spoke up, "Excuse me, sorry to interrupt you for a moment. I happened to be passing by and saw everything. These guys were actually the ones ambushed by those thugs. So, let me explain." He quickly added, "I believe their actions were entirely for self-defense." Realizing what actually happened, she looked closely at Green and muttered, "Wait, he looks pretty familiar." Karina shifted her gaze over to Burn. "You guys are students from Hinisik Academy, aren't you?" Seeing their guilty reaction, she let out a heavy sigh. "Exactly as I figured. I just hope that arrogant young lady has nothing to do with this." Jin wondered, which lady is she talking about? Karina ordered her subordinates to drag them away before replying, "That is internal academy business, so you don't need to concern yourself with it." Jin grinned, "So even the Holy Knights have to do street patrols these days? Guild work? I thought that was strictly their job." She shot back, "This capital is absolutely massive, so we are just doing our part to maintain public order." Though privately, she sighed honestly, "I just wandered off too far while looking for snacks." Karina's eyes swept over Jin as she silently assessed his power. This guy's actual strength is pretty formidable. After all, those academy students from earlier were certainly no pushovers. Turning away, Karina warned them, "Fine. Just try not to cause any more trouble around the capital." Jin suddenly stopped her with a proposal, "Wait. If you don't mind, I actually want you to take me somewhere." Hearing that, she looked quite reluctant as she asked, "You seriously want me to guide you somewhere?" Inside Agos's mansion, with a dead serious look, Jin looked at him and demanded, "Hire us." Jin added, "Didn't you tell me to come find you if I ever needed help when we first met?" Agos looked over the group and noted, "Looks like you brought even more people than last time." Jin shrugged. "Some unexpected things came up." Jin explained, "We ran into those bandits you warned us about. They had these people captive, so I stepped in and saved them." Hearing this, Agos asked, "And what about the bandits?" Jin replied, "I beat them half to death, then left the rest for the guild to handle." Agos slowly nodded, saying, "I see." But privately, he wondered, did this guy really take out all of them completely on his own? August asks him, "Why did you decide to help these girls?" Jin explains that they have no family left, pointing out they are the ones society labels as low-born. He continues, saying he thought he should at least try to find them some decent work. Raising an eyebrow in confusion, August admits he does not think Jean has any obligation to take care of them. Jean casually replies that it is simply a personal work ethic of his. He lowers his voice, stating that regardless of the reason, he saved their lives and refuses to do things half-heartedly. He will take responsibility to the very end. Hearing this, August is completely stunned, while Poweroo and Nino cannot help but look at Jean with deep gratitude in their eyes. He quickly agrees, deciding they can both stay and start working right here in this mansion. Hardly believing her ears, the young girl asks if it is really true, but August slowly adds that he has one condition. He tells him he wants Jean to take on the role of an academy instructor. Hearing this, Jean frowns in confusion, repeating the word instructor. A short while later, both Poweroo and Nino have changed into their work uniforms. Jean observes the sisters, praising how professional they look. The young girl quickly and politely bows, expressing their deepest gratitude to Lord August for this chance. He simply replies that thanks are not necessary. August turns to instruct his staff, trusting them to train the newcomers without any discrimination. just because of their low-born status, and both servants immediately salute in unison. Poweroo happily waves to Jean, thanking him, while Jean turns to August and asks what comes next. This teaching offer clearly has an underlying motive, right? August chuckles, noting how sharp Jean is, which will certainly come in handy for the job. August's gaze suddenly turns cold, as he admits he still does not know Jean's true background, but wants to trust him as the right person for this task. August's voice continues, explaining that he wants Jean to conduct an undercover investigation inside the prestigious Hannes Academy. Jean's expression darkens slightly as he asks what this whole situation is really about. August calmly states that the kingdom has currently become a prime target for various power-hungry factions. Jean asks in confusion if there is no king currently ruling over this land. He explains that the king is gravely ill, with very little time left, meaning the bloody war for succession has already begun playing out silently in the shadows. And check this out. August grimly reveals that people with zero claim to the throne are plotting to seize the entire kingdom. He opens up, sharing that these conspirators are employing illegal invaders and dragging completely innocent lives into their dark, sinister plots. Hearing this, Jean begins to piece it together, realizing they have to worry about far more than just that petty local lord. August warns him that such dangerous individuals are currently hiding and operating in secret, right under their noses in the capital. We need to locate their main hideout as fast as humanly possible. Jean asks to confirm if the most suspicious location is Hannes Academy, and August nods, confirming that is exactly the place. As soon as he finishes speaking, August quickly knocks on a door, announcing his entry. He explains that she will be the guide inside the academy. August adds that he wants to introduce his younger sister, Milia, who is currently studying at the very same academy. Turning to his sister, August tries to introduce Jean, but before he can even finish his sentence, she sharply cuts him off to address her brother. Milia asks in disgust if he genuinely intends to hand over that highly confidential mission to a common, low-born peasant like this. August snaps at Milia for being incredibly rude, but she fires back, asking what is so disrespectful about stating the truth. Is not the mere existence of these low-born trash the real insult here? She continues, gesturing that while she will overlook that country bumpkin woman, this crucial task simply cannot be entrusted to a worthless lowborn. Honestly, you have to feel for Jean as he sighs at this incredibly biased lady, while August helplessly offers a sincere apology. August begs Jean not to take her words to heart. Karina then quietly whispers that while the young lady is talented, she holds a deep prejudice against lowborns. Jean forces a smile, realizing Karina is actually not much different from her mistress. Milia snaps open her fan, pointing it directly at August, demanding to know if her brother understands that this is not just a simple infiltration. This man is also expected to carry out the full duties of an academy instructor. Narrowing her eyes, she adds that she simply cannot believe a lowborn has what it takes to teach others, unless he actually possesses the necessary credentials. Hakama quickly blabs that Jean cannot even read, while Jean helplessly wishes she had not blurted that out. Milia scoffs, letting out a heavy sigh as she concludes that, in that case, the man is completely unqualified for the position. The little girl innocently adds that there are many things only Jean can teach, insisting he is far more extraordinary than any of them could ever hope to be. Hearing these passionate words, Milia falls completely silent for a brief moment. She walks past them, dryly noting that he must at least have enough physical strength to keep a bunch of unruly students in line. Milia's eyes grow dim, but she knows that being an educator takes a lot more than just relying on sheer brute strength. Hearing this, August can only let out a weary sigh. Karina chimes in, noting that regarding those students they met on the way, she already figured out that young lady was pulling their string. He helplessly apologizes, "I am terribly sorry, and I will absolutely give her a proper scolding." Jean replies, "I really do not mind." Lowering his voice, Jean asks, "By the way, as a lecturer, what exactly do you want me to teach?" August answers it is spirit magic. He explains, "Based on my own analysis, you are incredibly masterly with spirit magic. Am I right?" Jean looks a bit puzzled. "What exactly should I teach?" August answers, "Just teaching the basics is enough." He adds sparking fire, discharging electricity, freezing, and healing. If you can perform even just 2 out of those 4 basic techniques, that meets the requirements. Jean asks, doubtfully, "Is that really all? Just that simple?" August instinctively frowns. "What do you mean by just that?" He continues, "Do not tell me you can actually cast those specialized spirit spells that only a rare few can master." He wonders, specialized spirit magic? Jean suddenly remembers something. Wait, so that bandit was actually considered part of the elite class in this era? A sly smile creeps in. This is about to get good. Jean immediately agrees. All right, I guess I will shake up the common sense of this era a little bit. A week passes, and the busy entrance exam atmosphere is taking over Hannes Academy. Absolutely everyone inside the grounds seems incredibly occupied. Right now, Hakama is focused on finishing the exam. At that moment, Rudman's voice rings out. Oh, what an honor to have you personally escorting him here today. He rolls his eyes among the ranks of the Holy Knights. I would assume that Unit 7 is extremely busy. August replies, please do not worry about that. It is simply our turn to carry out the duty. Jean walks over with a confused look and asks our turn. He explains the system once every single year. The Holy Knights take turns choosing one member to act as a special instructor for this academy. And this year, that responsibility has been officially handed to Unit 7. Jean nods. I get it now. Jean silently ponders to himself, am I truly suited for this kind of work? His face shows growing unease, and Rudman suddenly catches a glimpse of his troubled expression. Shaking off his thoughts, he cheerfully guides them. Please come this way. Rudman announces the headmistress and the board of directors are waiting inside. Seeing the doors open, she looks up from her desk. Argos bows respectfully. It has been a very long time, headmistress. She smiles warmly. Ever since you graduated as our top student, you have quickly climbed the ranks and become quite a prominent knight, have you not? Then she adds, thank you so much for agreeing to support us. He humbly bows. It is a responsibility I am honored to fulfill. The headmistress leans back in her seat. I have heard some rumors. She continues, not only are you dealing with spirit magic issues, but you also got dragged into internal faction disputes. With a light chuckle, she says, I understand you cannot deploy too many troops since everyone is extremely busy these days. Locking her sharp gaze directly onto Argos, she warns, still, that does not give you the right to disrespect this academy. Fully confident, she presses on, and surely you did not bring this guy here to actually serve as our new instructor? The moment she finishes speaking, all the surrounding chatter in the room instantly goes dead silent. Hearing those harsh words, Argos immediately speaks up to defend him. Please rest assured, headmistress. He possesses abilities that are far beyond anyone else in my Unit 7. He emphasizes in a lower voice, at least, when it comes to actual real combat skills. Frowning at his defense, the headmistress says, if you say so, I will believe you. She shrugs, but how are we supposed to resolve this matter? Rita suddenly cuts in. Headmistress, I absolutely protest against this decision. He raises his voice. At this sacred and prestigious academy, there has never been a precedent of letting an inferior race teach students. Rita firmly declares this respected position is not meant for someone from such a low-born background. Are you trying to humiliate our academy? The headmistress calmly turns to ask Lord Rita has stated his piece. Lord Rudman, what are your thoughts? He immediately replies, I agree completely with his sentiment. Most of our elite students here come from prestigious noble families. He continues his explanation, if we allow an inferior person to teach here, it will definitely spark fierce backlash from both the students and the faculty members. She sighs softly. You see, my thoughts are pretty much aligned with theirs. She glances at Jean, but let us give him a chance to speak first. The moment she finishes speaking, Jean immediately steps forward. Jean bows deeply with respect. Please forgive my late introduction, as I come from Kodama village, and my name is Jean Sila. She quietly observes and judges him despite facing those incredibly harsh insults. He remains strangely calm and unfazed. Looking up, he says he completely understands their concerns, but he still wants to ask a quick question. Jean calmly asks, am I really unfit to be an instructor simply because I belong to a lower race? He sharply follows up, or is it because I lack actual ability? The headmistress casually replies that it is obviously the latter, because if you have strength, nothing else matters. Pressuring Jean further, she asks if he can actually prove his strength right here and now. Argos confidently speaks up to offer a suggestion. If that is the case, why do we not hold a quick test? Down at the Hannes Academy Spirit Arts training field, Zeta points out that since today is exam day, almost no students are around. He sneers, at least this way. You can avoid embarrassing yourself in front of a massive crowd. Hearing these mocking words, Jean chooses to stay completely silent. The headmistress explains the rules. It is simple. You will fight each other using nothing but spirit arts. She adds, you came to apply for a spirit arts instructor position, so seeing your actual power with our own eyes is the best way to judge you, is it not? Right then, nearby students start whispering. Check this out. Gossip travels incredibly fast. When an exhibition match is about to begin, Milia listens quietly to the chatter. This might actually be the first time I get to see Master Zeta fight in person. Jean sighs inwardly, with absolute annoyance. What a total waste of my precious time. The headmistress calls out, let us see what someone from a lower race can truly achieve. Argos cannot hide his deep anxiety, thinking that this is his very first time watching the man fight. He reflects, those from lower races usually have incredibly weak physical bodies, so even if they do possess divine power, they can only unleash a tiny fraction of it. Argos pins all his hopes on Jean, praying his decision was not a massive mistake. Right then, Zeta calls out, "Are you ready yet?" He flashes a sly, wicked grin. Fine, what comes next? Without hesitation, Zeta unleashes a sudden, decisive strike. I will take the first move. Seeing the danger, Jean quickly leaps aside to dodge the blast. Watching this unfold, the students cannot contain their excitement. Zeta thinks to himself that even if it is not many, there are still pupils watching. Zeta instantly summons the raw power of lightning, throwing it straight at him in a split second. Jean swiftly uses his footwork to dodge again. Zeta sneers inwardly, "Is running away all you know how to do? You low-class trash." Zeta smiles confidently. "I might not have become a holy knight, but I graduated at the very top of this academy." He directly commands a blast of fire forward. "You do not stand a chance against me." Meanwhile, Jean calmly watches, deeply analyzing the situation. Honestly, I should not use this kind of power against a mere human, he thinks. Jean lets out a quiet sigh. I have no other choice. Reaching out his hand, he begins to summon his power. Jean's gaze turns ice cold. I will show you all just a tiny fraction of it. Feeling the space around him warp, Zeta completely freezes. And here is where things get wild. Before he can process his shock, intense gravity weighs him down. Watching this, the headmistress and Rootman cannot hide their utter disbelief. Even Argos beside them completely freezes up. At the same time, Milia stares, unable to believe the sight before her eyes. Struggling under the pressure, Zeta gasps. What is this? What just happened? Jean speaks up. I simply adjusted the gravity around him a little bit. Have you guys never heard of this kind of spirit magic before? He chuckles. It seems I will have plenty of things to teach at this academy, Jean says, looking at him with absolute confidence. Not just lessons for the students, but valuable lessons for all of you as well. Before long, the entire situation turns completely and utterly absurd. Gritting his teeth, Zeta glares at him with pure hatred. Right at that very second, Jean suddenly snaps his fingers with a click. Instantly, the heavy gravity holding him down begins to fade away. Zeta screams, what kind of cheap trick did you just pull? Jean calmly replies, that was clearly spirit magic. Do you not know it? Zeta roars, I have never heard of such bizarre spirit magic in my life. You must have used cheap tricks. Jean sighs helplessly. Hey, just look over there. Watching from the sidelines, the headmistress is temporarily left speechless. Seeing this unfold, she quietly adds that it seems everything is already over. Argos nods in agreement, I suppose so. Meanwhile, the quiet whispers of the watching students begin to echo. Without a single doubt, Milia thinks those were high-level spirit arts. A student nearby asks her if she actually saw it happen. What on earth was that terrifying force? Milia quietly analyzes, how is this even possible? Unlike us, who evolve under the protection of the spirits, that lower-class race should not possess even a single drop of divine power. Her eyebrows knit together in a deep frown. Milia can't help but wonder what on earth is going on here. Who in the world is that man? As those thoughts race through her head, Zeta's voice breaks in, begging her to please stay calm. 1 week later, the headmaster makes a major announcement. This academy is not just here to teach book knowledge. She explains that their absolute core mission is to forge true, legendary warriors who have what it takes to completely destroy. The headmaster adds a chilling warning: anyone who fails to keep up with the brutal curriculum will be expelled immediately, with absolutely no mercy. But for those who actually survive and graduate, she continues, joining the ranks of the Holy Knights will no longer be some distant, impossible dream. In the end, she leaves them with one final reminder: your success depends entirely on your own raw strength. Up in the stands, the older students start whispering among themselves. We have a lot of fresh faces this year, don't we? Yeah, looks like a massive crowd of commoners got let in. As Milia is lost in thought, Lias's voice snaps her back to reality. She turns around, unable to hide her sheer surprise. Lias grins and speaks up. It is pretty rare to see you showing up at an opening ceremony. I honestly figured you were the type who never cared about anyone else. Milia raises an eyebrow, firing back with, and what about you? Lias teases that if there was a high noble in the crowd, she would probably try to butter them up for status. But suddenly, his eyes freeze. Wait, look at that. Lias asks in pure disbelief. Why is a low-born trash sitting comfortably in the prestigious professor section? She simply shrugs and replies that he is literally a professor. Hearing this, Lias cannot even begin to hide his absolute shock. What did you just say? Melia asks from your perspective. How do you actually size up that man? Still completely stunned, Lias keeps staring intensely at Jin. In the end, he scoffs and concludes that the guy is still just a low-born peasant. She narrows her eyes. Perhaps you are not wrong. At the same time, Jin is quietly observing his new surroundings and sizing things up. This academy is massive, so investigating will definitely take some time. Jin glances around, thinking that all these judging stares are getting pretty annoying. First things first, he needs to shake off this low-class label. He calculates that, if this keeps up, he will draw way too much unwanted attention. Forget investigating, he is already becoming the most suspicious person in the school. To get anywhere, he absolutely must earn their respect first. Before long, the commotion dies down and things return to normal. Ryuta stands before the class and announces that they are starting spirit magic lessons today. He warns them to stay sharp so these fresh recruits do not end up outrunning them. This might not even cross your mind since you are all part of the elite class. But still, Ryuta lets out a slight smirk, saying, "Yes, that is exactly what I wanted to convey." Suddenly, he roars in anger. What on earth is going on here? Why is the attendance so incredibly thin today? Have you all completely lost your fire? Hearing this, Leah silently chuckles. Well, that is just common sense. Ryuta sneers. Who in their right mind would attend a class taught by a lowborn trash? He maliciously smiles, knowing he had deliberately spread the rumors everywhere that an inferior, lowborn peasant would be teaching today. Turning to Jin, he sighs out loud. What a real pain this is. All right, let's get this over with. Master Jin, please introduce yourself. Stepping forward, he speaks calmly. I will begin now. My name is Jin. He continues his introduction, explaining that he was assigned here to guide them through the absolute basics of spirit magic over the coming weeks. It is a pleasure to meet all of you, and here comes the disrespect. Leah sneers. Do you really think you are qualified? Jin calmly replies that they can judge that for themselves. He nonchalantly adds that if they ever feel his lessons are a waste of time, they are totally free to skip his class. Jin's voice suddenly drops, warning them of one absolute, unbreakable rule: they must never, under any circumstances, use this power to harm other humans. He explains that spirit magic is specifically designed with the sole ability to completely nullify the hyper-regeneration of the corrupted. However, he warns them that this suppressive effect has zero impact when used against a normal human body. You will only end up inflicting basic physical injuries on them instead. Do any of you actually know why that is? Jin's gaze grows incredibly cold. It is because this power was forged with a single, absolute purpose: to destroy the corrupted. Therefore, he firmly warns them that he will not tolerate anyone abusing this sacred power. The second Jin stops speaking, John bursts out laughing. Are you a complete idiot? Power is simply power, nothing more. He sneers with pure contempt, wondering what a low-born peasant could possibly teach them, only to hear him say not to use spirit arts. John sneers that Jin is probably just terrified of them, because he is a useless, weakling from an inferior race, right? The entire classroom bursts into mocking laughter at his words. But Jin just stands there, calmly listening to their pathetic, arrogant giggles. Sighing, Jin calmly speaks up. If you genuinely think I lack strength, why don't you come try and prove it? John frowns in utter confusion. What? Meanwhile, Jin challenges him, daring him to use his absolute strongest attack. Flashing a highly confident smile, Jin promises that if the guy can scratch him even slightly, he will pack up and leave this place forever. Hearing those words, John immediately bursts into a wild, delighted laugh. John prepares to strike, telling him not to beg when he is crying in regret later. Rita screams in absolute panic, calling John an idiot and telling him to stop this madness right now. Rita yells, asking if he plans to hit her too, but John completely ignores her and fires his attack directly at Jin. A massive bolt of lightning tears through the air towards Jin. The moment it impacts, pure chaos erupts all over the field. John smirks at the destruction, thinking he won, but suddenly, a sharp blade cuts straight through the thick cloud of dust. The sword flies right past him, leaving everyone stunned. John turns his head to see the blade pinned deep into the wall behind him, completely terrified. Jin glares at him with cold, icy eyes. If I actually wanted you dead, that strike would have ended your life right there. He calmly tells him that judging someone solely by their appearance is a deadly mistake. Lias is just as shocked as everyone else, wondering what that magic was and if it was actually spirit magic. Jin speaks up again, asking if John seriously thought he was weak just because of his background. But the truth is, he is way stronger than him. Jin keeps pushing, asking what John should call him now. Then, He decides to give him the correct answer himself. Pausing for a second, Jin looks over at Ron with a smirk. "Call me Professor." Turning to the class, he asks if anyone there actually understands the requirements needed to activate spirit magic. Pointing directly at the guy who just tried to blast him, Jin tells him to answer the question. Shaking, John stammers out his answer, saying that it should just be based on the caster's own imagination. Ron chimes in, explaining how mages focus their energy and send mental images to the spirits to bring them to life. Ron asks if that is basic knowledge, and Jin agrees that mental visualization is indeed pretty important here. However, that is not the actual key trigger. Jin explains that spirits only release their true power once they receive a very specific wavelength frequency from the caster. Hearing this scientific explanation, John's mind completely freezes up in confusion. Repeating the term in shock, John listens. As Jin explains, there are 8 main wavelengths, starting with flame manipulation. Jin continues listing them down, naming electricity, discharge, and direct force projection as other common examples. Finally, he adds freezing to the list, pointing out that everyone in class should have mastered these basic elements by now. Ignoring the shocked stares of his students, Jin calmly continues to explain, mentioning complex powers like gravity manipulation. He breaks down how they can control light and even manipulate air pressure around them. Finally, he mentions the exact ability he used to block John earlier, space barrier protection. Jin continues explaining the applications, but Ryuta is standing there with his mouth wide open. Ryuta asks if Jin can actually master all 8 magic types. Jin calmly replies that it is just like when Ryuta fired that lightning lance at him. Mental visualization is still a highly necessary step in the process. Jin flashes a clever smile, and here is where things get fun. He asks the class if they can finally start the real lesson now. Sometime later, class ends. Jin walks down the hallway, thinking to himself that his first mission is finally underway. He needs to start investigating this massive academy, but passing students are already whispering and pointing him out as the new professor. Looking around, Jin notes that crowds of busy students are everywhere, making it pretty tough to locate any suspicious spots. Suddenly, he locks eyes with Milia. He realizes he should probably focus on restricted areas where regular students are banned. Jin closely watches her reaction, and at the exact same moment, she opens her eyes and stares right back. As he takes a few steps forward, Milia calls out to him, demanding to know who he actually is. Jin raises an eyebrow in response. She tells him that he is clearly not just some low-class commoner, admitting he is far from ordinary. Milia mumbles to herself, saying someone from a lower class shouldn't be able to use all types of magic. Jin casually shrugs, saying he literally just explained that during his lecture. Anyone can do it, if they can separate the wavelengths. But she sighs, telling him not to make it sound so easy. Turning to face him, she adds that if it were really that simple, he wouldn't be causing such a massive scene right now. Nearby, students are still gossiping wildly, asking each other if it is actually true that he can master every single element. She starts walking away, suggesting they find a quieter place to talk. Soon, the two of them are walking down a completely empty hallway. Milia asks if he is finally ready to answer her questions now, and Jin calmly replies that it is pretty simple. For the past 100 million years, I have been an ancient soul sleeping soundly in Kodama village. She looks completely skeptical. You really are quite a joker, Milia says, her voice growing quite sharp as she demands a real answer. What exactly were you doing 100 million years ago? He pauses, thinking back, before answering that a lot went down. Back then, I was a secret agent, he says. A secret agent? She asks, and Jin explains it means working for the state. His mind drifts back into the distant past. I fought against an endless army of villains in those days. Even though 100 million years have passed, Jin remembers every single moment like it is happening right now. He keeps thinking it is still crystal clear. He has walked through absolute hellfire and survived things no one else could. Just thinking about it fills Jin with quiet pride. Those were the days. Milia speaks up. I wonder how someone like you ended up asleep for 100 million years in the first place. Because I failed, he replies honestly. Jin's eyes soften as he admits I genuinely believed I could fix everything if I just worked hard enough. He shares the heavy truth the price was losing absolutely everything while standing there completely powerless. Adding to that, he took this teaching job hoping these students might actually help him out whenever things get too tough. She stares at Jin with deep doubt, trying to guess how much of his story is actually real. He suddenly asks where exactly they are headed anyway. Milia turns her head. Regardless of your crazy stories, I still need to fulfill my duty as your guide. Moments later, she pushes a door open and announces they have finally arrived. Jin looks around the space and asks what this place is. Milia explains this is where the instructors store all their teaching materials. So it is basically just a storage room, he thinks aloud. But then, Jin's eyes suddenly catch on a strange object resting on a shelf. Staring with deep curiosity, he turns to her and asks why she brought him to this specific spot. Without a second thought, Milia answers that she is doing some investigating of her own. She explains there is a highly unusual space right next to this room, large enough to easily hide an entire separate chamber. Pretty suspicious, right? She asks. If there is a secret, it has to be hidden right here. Jin nods, admitting he sees her point, and this is where things get wild. He looks down and tells her she was absolutely right. Milia is completely stunned, asking him how he could possibly have noticed that. Jin speaks softly, look closely. Even though this entire area is covered in thick dust, he points at the item right in front of them. This exact spot is mysteriously clean, and the rest is just my old instincts kicking in. Jin warns her to stay put while he checks inside, but Milia quickly objects. Hold on, I am coming with you. He frowns. If something is hiding down there, it could be a corrupted being. You do realize how dangerous this is, right? Milia snaps back. Please do not underestimate me. She boasts that her grades are at the very top of the class, and her combat skills are not at all behind her own brother. Jin offers a small smile, agreeing to trust her abilities, and the two of them venture down into the mysterious dark basement. As they go down, he says this path leads quite deep underground. Milia thinks his light magic is pretty useful. Jin jokes that if this were a fantasy novel, a monster would definitely jump out at them right about now. She rolls her eyes. Fantasy? Milia gets straight back to their previous topic. If you really fought villains for such a long time, do you actually have any real clues about who the main suspect is? You ask far too many questions for just one day. Jin sighs. He goes quiet, then lowers his voice. There is a pretty high chance that Lord Rootman is involved in this. Milia frowns, asking how he could possibly know that. He recalls the man's behavior. He always seemed completely calm while talking. But Jin noticed that the moment he was not speaking to anyone, his mind was totally somewhere else. That is a classic tell for someone who is being forced to act against their own true will. His guard was also incredibly high, Jin adds, but I just played dumb and pretended not to notice a thing. Hearing this, Milia replies, I honestly thought Instructor Zito was the suspicious one, but Jin insists that is totally impossible for a guy like him. He remembers how the instructor wears every emotion right on his face. The man has a genuinely kind heart and is simply incapable of plotting behind anyone's back. Jin watches the small flame in his palm and tells her they should move on. As they push deeper, they start to find the most unexpected things. She gasps in disbelief. It is hard to believe such a massive cavern exists right beneath the academy. And that's where he freezes. What is this? Milia asks, curious. Jin stares, unable to hide his absolute shock. I never expected to find it in a place like this. Looking at the door in front of him, he is absolutely sure this is the portal to one of those labs Kagura left scattered everywhere. He starts analyzing, noting that this entrance is heavily protected by nanomaterials, which makes total sense. Seeing this, Milia is completely stunned. How could a massive gateway like this be hidden right beneath the academy? Slightly terrified, she asks if they can even get inside. Jin tells her that, fundamentally, they just need an access key to bypass the security. Milia gives him a confused look. An access key? Jin does not bother explaining, simply calling it a catalyst to open the path. With that, he suddenly falls completely silent, lost in thought. Jin subconsciously recalls that back in Kodama village, Hakama was the one who inherited the key. It is highly likely someone here received a similar legacy. Snuffing out the flame in his hand, he summons a different power. If that is true, then, as soon as Jin touches the gate, the system instantly alerts them that it is verifying the highest level of access authority. Jin starts unlocking the gate as a heavy creak echoes. Look at that, he is staring right at the mastermind plotting to throw this nation into total chaos. He quickly realizes that this person is the one holding the actual access key to their ultimate weapon. Milia cannot believe her eyes, questioning how such an incredibly horrifying thing could exist right under their school. She is highly confused. How did you open it? Anyway, did you not just say we needed a special access key? Jin simply says that those from the ancient era are very unique. Milia quietly stares at his back, completely puzzled. Ancient? She can barely believe it. Is he really a human from 100 million years ago? Jin keeps scanning the surrounding area. Then, he speaks up with genuine suspicion. How strange, he thinks. Why would these creatures allow themselves to be captured so quietly? Jin analyzes the situation. Even the other corrupted beasts are acting the same way. showing absolutely no desire to lash out or attack. It hits him. Thinking back, the corrupted beast held by those bandits inside the cage was also acting incredibly passive and quiet. Jin frowns. Above all, how on earth did they manage to smuggle a corrupted monster of this sheer size all the way in here? Suddenly, Milia speaks up, completely cutting off his train of thought. It seems my brother's suspicions about this academy hiding dark secrets are absolutely spot on, she says, her voice trembling slightly. If we set up an ambush right here, the mastermind will surely show themselves. Jin quickly cuts her off. Absolutely not. Before we even think about doing that, we must lock down the academy and completely eliminate all of these corrupted beasts. Raising her voice, Milia asks if he expects her to just let the culprit escape. Jin brainstorms a plan. I get how you feel. But what if these corrupted monsters suddenly break loose and go completely out of control? He grimly concludes. The ones in actual danger would be the students, the people right above our heads at this very moment. Jin gently reassures her that her brother would definitely value the safety of the students over catching the villain. Milia is forced to admit that he has a very valid point. He lowers his voice, admitting he has a pretty bad feeling about this, his expression turning quite dark. My instincts in situations like this are usually pretty accurate. I want to search this lab just a little bit deeper. He asks her to contact Agus and close down the academy for him. Can I truly trust you with this task? After giving his instructions, Jin gathers his courage to venture deeper inside. All right, he mutters, slowly scanning the area once more. He immediately heads further inside. Given the state of things, he genuinely hopes he can dig up some kind of clue. While eerie silence fills the space down here, things outside the academy are getting incredibly loud and chaotic. Every single student is gossiping about Rita. You know how it is, rumor says the new professor absolutely schooled him. How pathetic. The angry veins on his forehead start pulsing in pure humiliation. My reputation is completely ruined all because of that inferior trash. Rita clenches his fists. How could that guy possibly control 8 types of spirit magic? He must be using some kind of cheap trick. He curses angrily under his breath, swearing he will unmask the fraud himself. Suddenly, the headmaster's voice rings out. Mr. Rita. She walks over, pointing out that the students are starting to panic. So could he please stop making such a bizarre scene? Startled, he turns to the headmaster. She sighs, explaining she does not mean to judge his personal hobbies, but Rita cannot believe his ears. Does she think this is just some joke? The headmaster then asks if he has seen Mr. Rudman anywhere. Scratching his head, he asks if she means Mr. Rudman. Rita thinks back. Now that she mentions it, he has not seen Rudman since the entrance ceremony ended. This is turning into quite a massive headache. She mentions that she actually needs to consult him regarding some upcoming lessons designed for their brand new students. Out of nowhere, the headmaster senses a remarkably powerful presence nearby, forcing her to immediately turn her head. What on earth is that? The headmaster stares up at the sky, completely baffled. What on earth is that thing? Meanwhile, Milia is running with everything she has, trying to reach the academy. She finally bursts out of the secret basement shortly after. Having sprinted for so long, Milia is completely exhausted, catching her breath, gasping for air. She mutters to herself she needs to warn her brother about this right away. Right then, Rudman's voice echoes out. What exactly are you planning to report? Milia does not even need to turn around to know who it is. He looks straight at her and calls her Lady Walton. Milia looks up, sees his sinister expression, and gasps out Lord Rudman. At the exact same time, Jin has successfully tracked down the secret fuel source powering the entire basement. A bright light ahead flashes right into his face. What on earth is this? Jin walks closer, staring blankly at the massive humming machinery. To him, it looks like it is throbbing rapidly, almost like a living heart. Jin starts scanning the system data. Could Kagura really have built this massive thing? Suddenly, his eyes catch on a metal box sitting nearby. Looking inside, Jin realizes it is a transmitter and a nanite injector left behind by Kagura. He quickly boots up the system, desperately hoping his friend left behind some kind of clue to explain this chaotic situation. Seconds later, a recorded hologram of Kagura flickers onto the screen. Can you hear me, Jin? It looks like you finally managed to find this place. Kagura says I knew you would, considering this spot is the closest coordinate to the laboratory where you first woke up. Oh right. In this exact lab, we once engineered a truly mind-blowing piece of technology. Kagura goes on. A fraction of that device's power was sealed directly inside those nanites. He pushes up his glasses with a smirk. I really am a genius. What kind of machine do you think it is? Kagura's next words make his eyes go wide. It is actually a device built for teleportation. Jin cannot believe his own ears, slowly repeating the word, teleportation. Just imagine that. The horrifying layout of this basement flashes through his mind again, completely stealing his breath away. It is absolutely unreal. Right there in the reinforced cage stands the massive corruptor. Suddenly, the countdown timer begins to shift, its glowing needles spinning out of control. A blinding red light flares from inside the energy sphere. Jin narrows his eyes, a machine for spatial teleportation. He visualizes gateway portals as he tries to wrap his head around it. A device capable of linking two entirely separate points in space. This level of technology was completely impossible even 100 million years ago. If that is true, Jin recalls the previous battle and how Argos mentioned those corruptors suddenly appearing out of nowhere inside the kingdom. He wonders to himself, were they actually sent there using this exact teleportation device? Resting his chin on his hand, Jin thinks about the corrupted beasts in the main hall and this device. The playback audio continues, confirming the spatial teleporter is indeed right here. He freezes for a second. It looks completely different now. Jin focuses his gaze, trying to figure out what this actually is. Suddenly, the timer hands begin spinning way faster than before. Instantly, the central sphere flares up, releasing a blinding wave of pure light. This intense flash forces him to shield his eyes, while the giant corruptor lets out a series of bizarre, guttural screeches. The beam of light shoots straight at the beast, and an explosive force shatters the iron cage, pulling the monster out. Elsewhere, Zaya rushes in completely out of breath. Argos, we have an emergency. The capital has, but Argos cuts her off. I already know. Looking up with deep worry, he realizes how bad this is. Argos mutters, we are officially looking at the absolute worst-case scenario. Right then, the massive corruptor gets blasted straight up into the high heavens. Meanwhile, Rudman sneers at Milia. What is going on here? Why is your face looking so incredibly serious? He flashes a deeply wicked, twisted grin. Channeling her inner strength, the young lady balling her fists yells furiously, get out of my way. You are behind all of this, are you not? Rudman lets out a mock gasp. So you figured it out already? It looks like you have been quietly digging around behind my back this entire time. He sneers, unfortunately for you, you are a step too late. Milia grinds her teeth. What do you mean by that? Rudman proudly declares, today is the exact day my master plan finally goes into action. That is exactly what I mean. He turns his back honestly. The original plan was scheduled for a bit later, but because a certain someone kept snooping around, I decided to speed things up. Rudman stares upward with deeply calculating eyes. He mutters that man would definitely become a massive threat to my master plan. Meanwhile, Jin is sprinting forward at absolutely breakneck speed. As the young man keeps rushing forward, Rudman continues his mocking lecture. My intuition tells me everything I need to know. That guy is honestly just as annoying as your brother. He points his finger directly toward the pathway leading to Tam. In fact, right at this very moment, he has already discovered that secret passage. Rudman turns and walks away. He is right down there at this very moment, you know. I really want to pull this troubling weed out by its roots immediately. Milia extends her hand forward as her power surges, asking if he actually believes he has what it takes to beat her. Rudman narrows his eyes, saying he is absolutely sure of it. He suddenly laughs out loud, claiming he now holds a power that can never be stopped. But Rudman has no idea that Hakama is right behind him holding a massive jar high, while Kudo watches in complete terror. This leaves Milia utterly stunned too, while the old man just keeps bragging endlessly. He promises to show her just how terrifying it is. The girl raises her jar even higher, while Rudman reaches into his pocket, searching for something. This is my brand new power. Wait, did you hear that loud crash? Milia is left both completely helpless and totally satisfied. Hakama wipes sweat from her forehead, looking down at the flattened Rudman to claim her absolute victory. Milia wonders why she is even here, and Hakama replies that she is actually looking for Master Jin. The girl explains that things outside are getting incredibly chaotic. They desperately need Master Jin's help to handle this. Hakama then glances over at Kudo. Kudo chimes in, saying she saw Master Jin heading straight into this very area. Milia puts her hands on her hips, asking if she is a first-year student. The girl nods nervously, introducing herself as Kudo Plaza. Kudo rushes over and grabs Hakama's hand with deep worry on her face, asking if doing this is really okay, since she just assaulted a teacher. The girl brushes it off, saying it will be totally fine. Hakama points, noting that he never even got a look at their faces. They can just blame everything on this rich lady. Hearing this, Milia sighs in frustration, telling the brat to stop calling her by that annoying title. Meanwhile, deep inside, they keep running at a breakneck speed. Hakama is quick to notice something ahead. Spotting a figure standing near the entrance, she calls out to Master Jin. He turns around, asking what on earth just happened. Hakama tugs on Jin's sleeve, telling him that things outside are getting really bad. He calmly replies that he is already aware. Jin's voice turns dead cold, explaining that the corrupted beasts locked inside the laboratory have all suddenly vanished. She looks completely terrified. Knowing what that means, all four of them immediately take off running. By now, the entire town below is swallowed by a sea of flames. Monsters are attacking citizens everywhere, causing absolute panic. They are tearing people apart, leaving everyone in absolute terror. But brace yourselves, a massive clawed foot suddenly slams down, shattering the ground. The giant corrupted beast has finally shown its face, letting out a savage and terrifying roar into the night. Its roar literally shakes the air like thunder, leaving Milia terrified that the entire capital is doomed. Jin grits his teeth hard. He admits he made a terrible misjudgment and should have completely destroyed that machine from the very start. Hakama points and screams for Jin to look up. She is gesturing toward the massive roaring monster in the distance. A blinding beam of light charges in its open jaws, and the creature's massive power makes the entire town tremble violently. Hudo is equally terrified, pointing out that the massive creature seems to be aiming directly at the royal palace. She fears that if this continues, every single member of the royal family will be in grave danger. Jin pulls out a glowing green syringe. Since this is all his fault, he vows to step up and end it once and for all. He injects it straight into his own arm. The result of this massive power upgrade is a unique feature that simplifies his teleportation process. Back then, Kagura explained that due to the energy stored within the nanoparticles, this can only be used once per day. He added that the range is highly restricted, meaning it only works within short distances visible to the naked eye. Suddenly, the giant beast unleashes a devastating blast of fire breath, aiming it directly at the heart of the castle walls. Having already transformed, Jin leaps high into the air, putting himself right in the path of that incoming wave of destruction. With his bare hand, he shatters the fiery blast instantly, showing he can easily reappear anywhere he wants in a split second. Below them, monsters keep swarming the screaming citizens. Deep inside the chaos, Rika is desperately running for her life. She throws the door open and rushes inside, shouting that a massive corrupted beast has breached the outer castle walls. The man inside calmly replies that he is already aware. This is Hardin Gonslot, the president of the Capital Guild. He speaks with total helplessness, admitting that they simply cannot do anything else at this point. Hardin looks down at the fleeing citizens, noting that anyone left who is capable of fighting is already out there. Right now, Agos and the other knights are fighting to protect the citizens, alongside the holy knights. Basically, everyone who can move is currently out on the battlefield. Rika is confused and asks what he means. He softly explains that right now, half of their holy knight forces are gone. Hardin adds that they are deployed on a mission far from the capital, a revelation that leaves her completely stunned. Outside, the colossal beast continues its ruthless assault, opening its massive jaws wide to unleash wave after wave of destructive energy. He ponders to himself, they targeted us the second the holy knights left. This attack was definitely planned out in advance. Hardin stares blankly ahead. If only the Grand Commander were here, we might have stopped this tragedy. But it is too late. Meanwhile, the corrupted giant continues spewing out raw destructive power, determined to reduce the entire town to ash. Gritting his teeth, Hayden closes his eyes in despair. I fear this is our end. But Rika suddenly points and screams out, Chief, look over there. He snaps his eyes open at her shout. Right there, Jin is actively holding back the corrupted monster's devastating beam of energy. Rika gasps in absolute joy. That is him. Her cheeks flush pink, completely unable to hide her excitement, recognizing him as the guy from Kodama village. Having unleashed that massive wave of energy, the massive, corrupted beast pauses for a moment, warily observing its surroundings. As for Jin, he drops down to touch the ground. He pulls back his fist, charging up a heavy blow, and unleashes a massive shockwave straight ahead. The attack slams directly into the corrupted giant with a deafening blast. Jin keeps his gaze locked onto the smoke, refusing to look away. But honestly, look at that. That attack barely even tickled the giant monster. He hesitates. The thing is just too massive, there is no way to put it down completely. Jin wipes the sweat dripping down his face, thinking to himself, teleporting took a much heavier toll on my energy than I realized. I guess things are not going to be as easy as he channels energy. As a gleaming sword manifests, he smiles, I might as well get a quick workout in. With those words, Jin swings his blade downward in a powerful strike. The force-infused slash cuts clean through the corrupted beast. Taking advantage of its momentary distraction, Jin dashes forward to attack again. He figures a strike like that will only buy some time since it will regenerate instantly anyway, but a few seconds are all he needs. His eyes burn with fierce determination. Time to focus, he thinks, staring straight at his target. I will apply the basic principles of the nano machine system here. Jin darts forward at high speed, completely neutralizing his body weight by manipulating gravity itself. Massive energy swirls around his legs. Jin thrusts his sword forward like a rocket, generating powerful gusts of wind by controlling the atmospheric pressure. Somewhere nearby, a man is pinned down by a vicious monster. Damn it, he growls. Suddenly, a blazing fireball streaks in from afar, slamming right into the creature and forcing it to shriek in agonizing pain. A voice shouts out, "We are here to back you up." Two young men step forward. "Who are you guys?" the man asks. "Students from the Hanasan Academy." Hutaki uses the opening to fling the beast away. "I am so grateful. Thank you for your bravery." Green clutches his arm tightly. "Either way, the Imperial capital is currently in extreme danger," he says. He joins the other two, staring warily at the approaching monster horde. "We have to take action," they agree. Out of nowhere, a foot lands, and Jin delivers an energy-packed slash right at the creature. The three of them stand completely dumbfounded. "What on earth?" Green stammers in confusion. "Isn't that guy just some low-class being?" Burn stutters, "Yeah, he is." Jin, meanwhile, ignores the chatter behind him and charges straight back toward the massive, corrupted monster. It will still take a bit of time for it to regenerate fully, so I need to close the distance before then. Angered, the beast unleashes a savage, deafening roar. The corrupted giant spits a deadly stream of fire straight at Jin. With lightning-fast reflexes, the young warrior leaps high into the air. Jin analyzes the situation carefully. Other than that breath attack, this thing really isn't much of a threat to me at all. In that case, he spins around, sprints forward, and unleashes a flurry of lethal strikes on the surrounding monsters. Jin tells himself before it can unleash its next big move, "I will end this right here." He keeps slashing rapidly, chanting, "Faster, I need to go even faster." With every passing second, Jin closes the distance, drawing closer to the giant, corrupted beast. Suddenly, he leaps high into the air, delivering an energy-infused slash straight across its massive calf. The giant beast fails to react in time and takes the full impact. Aegis and his crew are left totally speechless. The three girls cannot believe their eyes, yet Jin just keeps pushing his relentless, aggressive assault. He unleashes a spiderweb of slicing strikes all over the corrupted giant. Its massive arms are slashed repeatedly until the relentless flurry slices across its entire body. Pitch-black blood sprays everywhere as its mangled body starts resembling a shredded net. Yet the monster desperately attempts to lunge directly at Jin. Without a single trace of hesitation, Jin counters with a massive blast. A thunderous explosion erupts, sending powerful shockwaves vibrating through the air. Time to wrap this up. The giant is hit so hard it gets completely frozen in place. Seconds later, a monumental explosion and blinding flash erupt, making the entire castle look as though it is detonating as the brilliant white light engulfs the battlefield. Both Hayden and Jin are completely taken aback. The older man stands there utterly bewildered, wondering what on earth is actually happening right now. Meanwhile, Jin touches down safely on the ground. Hayden stares intently at the young warrior, silently wondering who this incredible young man really is. Fast forward to 3 days later. Standing on high, Jin looks down at the citizens as they work together to clean up the ruins left by the monsters. He raises his arms and stretches his body, reflecting on everything in his mind. Despite the massive scale of the disaster, there were no devastating casualties. Jin looks down and sighs in relief, glad the Holy Knights did their job so well. He thought back to the knights who had fought so hard, constantly on guard against that massive, corrupted beast. That probably stopped many Holy Knights from moving freely, let alone worrying about those trapped girls. Fortunately, the situation was quickly brought under control. Looking around, Jin realized the entire academy had already been completely sealed off to allow for an investigation. Then there was Master Ruthman, the suspected mastermind, already dragged away in chains. Amidst the sheer panic, all suspected instructors and academy high-ups were rounded up and taken away. Right now, they are facing intense interrogation at the lying flat. Jin stared blankly up at the ceiling, figuring the academy would close for a while. He had only been on the job for exactly 1 day. Glancing to the side, he realized this mess just handed him a brand new challenge. Jin knew that if all his enemies gathered together, he could easily wipe them out. But look at this when they scatter. Wiping them all out is impossible, making him bolt upright. To protect everyone from these corrupted monsters, he had to get way stronger. Clutching his Rubik's Cube, his resolve hardened for that goal. Suddenly, a loud knock on the door broke his train of thought. Wondering who it was, Jin opened it to find Milia, looking elegant in a beautiful dress as she bowed politely. "I have come to collect you, teacher," she said, flashing an incredibly sweet and friendly smile. Jin smiled awkwardly, noting the academy would likely close for a bit. But Milia softly interrupted, explaining that her brother was calling for him to personally thank him for earlier. Apparently, he has a few other things to discuss as well. Jin was puzzled, asking if she had really come all this way to fetch him herself. She nodded, saying of course. Milia added that for someone as important as him, merely sending a lowly servant would be incredibly disrespectful. Closing her eyes proudly, she declared that as a representative of the Anton family, she had to show up herself. Jin smirked, asking if she was finally done calling him a lower organism. Milia replied that she had given that matter some serious thought. Striking a majestic pose, she raised her hand and declared that one should never judge others by their cover, but respect everyone regardless of who they are. She spoke softly, requesting that from now on, he please let her stay by his side to learn and receive his direct guidance. And check this out. Hakama suddenly pops in, teasing her face flip as Jin turns to face her. Leaning forward playfully, she replied that her dorm was way too boring, so she just came over to hang out. Milia quickly hid her mouth behind her fan, grumbling about this annoying country girl. With deeply judgmental eyes, she called Hakama completely shameless for barging in without even asking for permission first. Jin teased her, asking if she hadn't literally just said she had learned her lesson. Cutting to the Argos mansion. Two neat rows of servants bow deeply as they arrive, welcoming their young lady back. A butler stepped forward, asking if the two young ones could lead the way. Both Nino and Poweru readily agreed with a bright smile. Jin smiled softly, noting they seemed quite used to working here. The young boy looked up, saying it was all thanks to everyone. Walking along, Jin asked if they got hurt during that crazy incident. Poweru shook her head, happily explaining that all the workers here had protected them. She added that everyone here is super strong. Jin smiled, quite pleased to see that they were being taken such good care of. Poweru then chimed in, mentioning she heard Jin did some absolutely amazing things out there. Jin asked where she heard that, and the girl pointed out Lady Milia and Lord Argos. Hearing this, Milia looked incredibly pleased with herself. Bragging about her great teacher's epic feats to other people was, of course, the absolute duty of a loyal disciple like herself. Jin stared back, completely dumbfounded by the word disciple. Milia laughed, telling the kids that since they shared Jin's tribe, they should learn from him. Both kids nodded eagerly. Nino then leaned in close to whisper that until quite recently, Lady Milia had still been incredibly harsh on them. He added that lately, she has actually become quite a bit gentler, almost like Sax did. Jin shook his head at how fast her personality flipped. Soon enough, all five of them reached the grand main room. Poweru knocked on the door, announcing they had brought Jin. A deep voice from inside quickly gave them permission to enter. Stepping inside, Jin found Hayden and Lord Argos waiting, with Argos looking rather serious. He thanked Jin for making the trip and invited him to sit down. Argos apologized for summoning him so suddenly, but Jin just gave a casual shrug, saying it was no big deal. Since he was free anyway, Argos gestured toward the older man, saying he should introduce his guest first. Introducing him as Hayden Gonso, the master of the Royal Capital's Adventurer Guild, the man stood up to shake Jin's hand, offering a very polite greeting. Expressing hope for a smooth partnership moving forward, Hayden quietly took his seat again. He admitted that he had witnessed Jin's incredible performance the other day, adding that if Jin had not stepped in to stop the incident, the entire kingdom would definitely be facing a massive crisis right now. Hayden rested both hands on his knees, slowly preparing to stand up. He offered his sincere thanks for saving the entire country, but Jin casually waved it off, replying that he only took down the biggest monster. He added that cleaning up the messy aftermath was entirely the work of the kingdom's holy knights anyway. If you want to say thanks, go thank them instead. Hayden rests his chin on his hand, thinking Jin is surprisingly humble. Do you seriously have no ambitions at all? Sensing the sudden silence, Jin wonders if that is all there is. He simply replies, no. Hayden adds that, because of this recent incident, the royal family actually wants an audience with him. Hearing this, Jin's gaze turns ice cold. The royal family? He adds. But before that, there is one thing we must clear up. Hayden's face looks incredibly tense. Who are you really? He says, everything is thanks to our guild members stationed in every corner of the country. There is absolutely no news in this entire country that ever escapes my ears. Hayden reaches his hand toward Jin, admitting that he ran a background check but could not find a single shred of information about him. Agos finally speaks up. That is exactly what I want to clear up. So do not even try dodging the question. He asks with a tense look, "Where did you come from?" Agos demands in a cold tone, "What is your real goal in this country?" He warns him to spit out the truth right now. Agos keeps his tense expression even after asking. Jin casually replies that he has absolutely no intention of hiding anything. He sighs, saying he only kept quiet because he figured nobody would believe the truth anyway. Agos finally lets out a smile, saying if those words come from Jin's mouth, he will believe them. Jin speaks softly, "Then I will trust in those words." Hold on, here is the mind-blowing part. Jin coldly reveals he lived 100 million years ago. Agos rests his chin on his hand, thinking about the taboo of Kodama village. Furrowing his brows, he realizes Jin is the one who slept behind the sealed door. Hayden admits, it is pretty hard to believe, but before he can even finish, a sudden voice interrupts. I believe him. He looks up to see Lady Milia. Milia giggles, explaining that their teacher went deep into the academy basement and opened a forbidden ancient door. Covering her mouth, she adds that her brother and the others literally witnessed his overwhelming power with their own eyes. Agos is completely shocked, looking at Milia in total confusion and asking what on earth happened. Jin speaks up, explaining that he had been sleeping deep beneath this very country. He explains that he came to the capital to gather information about this era. Hoden crosses his arms, asking what kind of information he is looking for. Jin replies softly that there are two things. Raising a finger, he says the first is the corrupted. He explains that those beasts existed 100 million years ago too. With a sharp gaze, he adds, they really shouldn't be alive today. Hayden wonders why that is. Jin replies that it is all thanks to the power of the spirits. He adds that back then, spirits from 100 million years ago existed in every corner of the world. Back then, a swirling pillar of light shot straight into the sky like a tornado, triggering massive lightning. The entire planet looked like a fireworks show as giant corrupted beasts emerged. The corrupted can only survive in polluted areas. Jin continues, explaining that spirits possess the unique power to purify those toxic environments. Hayden asks, curiously, then why are these corrupted beasts still around in this day and age? Jin shakes his head, admitting he does not know the exact details. But as a holographic screen pops up, he notes that according to his friend, these beasts are actually evolving. Can you even blame Hayden for being completely shocked? He immediately asks if this is ancient technology. Hayden tries to figure out how this system even works, but honestly, he has absolutely no clue. Hayden silently wonders if this young man really came from 100 million years ago. Jin speaks softly, explaining that is the main reason he came to the capital. Jin adds that he also wants to see how humans in this era have been dealing with them. It seems many ancient records are still preserved here. Agos asks what his second goal is, and Jin replies clues about the hidden laboratories. Jin explains that one of those labs lies right beneath this capital, created by his old friend. He continues that he is searching for labs scattered across the globe. Privately, Jin decides to keep the method of boosting his own power a secret. Leaning back, he tells them that ultimately, he only has one single goal. Clasping his hands with a dead serious look, Jin says he wants to wipe the corrupted off this planet. That is why he is here. Silence fills the room as everyone processes his words. Hayden admits it sounds absolutely crazy, and Agos nods in agreement. He flashes a warm smile, choosing to believe it since they both want to deal with those corrupted beasts anyway. Agos lets out a sigh, warning him not to share that wild story with anyone else, or people will think he is insane. Jin nods in understanding. Agos then turns to Hayden, who shrugs and says if the master believes it, then he will too. Hayden points out that, besides, an enemy trying to harm them would never risk his life to protect their castle. Suddenly, a knock sounds at the door. Poweru steps inside, apologizing to Agos for interrupting their serious conversation. He reports that their scheduled departure is drawing close. Agos stands up and shrugs, asking if the two of them are ready. Both youngsters quickly nod in agreement, and soon after, their carriage wheels are spinning rapidly down the open road. The carriage speeds toward the castle, while Jin stares out the window, lost in his own thoughts. So he is about to meet this country's royalty. Even with that, he cannot help but ask if changing clothes was actually necessary at all. Argus asks, do you not like it? He thinks it looks great on him, then turns his gaze toward the other three. Even the ladies who stayed behind praised it, right? Jin sighs, complaining that it is just a bit hard to move around. Hayden speaks up, reminding him that the person they are meeting is the first prince, acting as the king's official representative. He requests they maintain proper manners, asking for understanding. But Jin grumbles, calling the whole thing a massive pain. Jin tells them he only hopes he will not get dragged into another mess. As they approach the waiting crowd inside, everyone looks incredibly tense. Hayden bows his head, announcing he has brought the hero who saved the kingdom from crisis. The royal orders them to raise their heads. Jin looks up, obeying the command, and thinks to himself, so, this is him. Jin immediately recognizes the man as the first prince, Teus Kormozia, and calmly introduces himself, saying it is a pleasure. My name is Jin Shido. Teus speaks coldly, explaining that on behalf of his ailing father, he is offering thanks as the royal representative. You have done well. He continues, mentioning he heard from Argus that Jin actually comes from Kodama village. Teus sneers, saying it is quite surprising that someone so incredibly talented came from such a tiny, insignificant little village. Hearing this, Jin pauses tiny. Huh? A smirk creeps onto the prince's face as he gets straight to the point, ordering Jin to submit to him. He goes on, declaring that as a newly appointed holy knight of this kingdom, Jin must dedicate all his strength to serving them. Met with Jin's silence, Teus tries to provoke him further, saying that as a holy knight, he is expected to give everything. Jin's eyes are filled with pure disgust. The prince sneers. What is wrong? Did you not hear what I said? Hayden quickly steps in to diffuse the tension, explaining that they were the ones who summoned Jin. He looks up, advising against this, but Jin cuts him off coldly, stating he has no intention of staying in this kingdom for long. Teus sighs, pointing out that Jin is currently employed at the academy, but Jin instantly replies that it is only a temporary job. The prince's eyes turn sharp and cold, asking if he is refusing. Jin casually replies that he is sorry, and right here, things go from bad to worse in an instant, as heavily armed soldiers surround them with pointed spears. Under his orders, all three of them are trapped. Capture him, the prince yells, while Hayden shouts in absolute shock. What? What are you doing, prince? Teus casually replies that the truth is, this man is actually under suspicion of high treason. He continues, explaining that the ancient door in the academy basement was sealed shut, yet invaders used it to hide. Teus coldly adds that rumor says Jin himself unlocked that door. So, doubting him is only natural, is it not? His face contorts into an incredibly sinister and wicked grin. Even his act of saving this kingdom might just be a carefully staged performance. Hearing this, Hayden feels an overwhelming wave of anger. It is completely ridiculous and utterly absurd. But Jin's face remains absolutely calm, his expression completely unchanged. Teus rests his chin on his hand, looking down on them with a mocking tone, saying it would be a waste to kill him. If you agree to serve me, I will overlook everything and let this go. A wicked, arrogant smile spreads across his face. But if you refuse, this is the only option left. Meanwhile, Argus stays completely quiet, his mind racing with deep thoughts. Jin only recently arrived in this capital, so there is no way he could be involved. Argus turns to look toward Hayden. He already explained that he was the one who asked Jin to investigate the academy, so the prince should know that. Watch closely. Now this is the moment Argus realizes they fell straight into a trap. He should have suspected something from this heavy security, recognizing the captains of the 3rd and 4th units. Argus glances over at Wasa. Those men are blindly loyal to the first prince. Argus furrows his brows, knowing they would do anything dirty for his sake. Argus recalls the past. If he had refused from the very beginning, they probably would have planned to eliminate him too. Teus speaks up again, pointing out that Jin defeated that giant invader, making it far too dangerous to let him roam free. He extends his hand, offering a fake show of mercy by giving Jin one absolute final chance to save himself. With glowing red eyes, Teus demands his loyalty, but a tense silence fills the hall until Jin finally opens his mouth to speak. Jin says he has no idea what the prince is thinking, which immediately irritates Teus, who demands to know what he means. Jin argues that even if he agrees now, the oath is completely useless if he simply decides to run away later. Argus quietly agrees with that logic. Jin coldly points out that the prince simply wants to hear those words of submission. He continues, wondering if the prince is just trying to feed his ego and satisfy a lust for power, or if Jin's words make Teus's face turn incredibly dark, questioning what other schemes are hidden. Suddenly, a blade is drawn close to Jin's neck, with a loud shout to shut up. Jin grabs the spear tight. Wasa, who do you think you are talking to? Listen closely to what I have to say next. He uses raw strength to bend the metal spear right in his hands. Wasa freezes in shock. How is this even possible? Suddenly, Jin lifts Wasa completely off his feet, hoisting him high into the air. Then, with a brutal slam, He hurls the old man straight down onto the stone floor. Wasa lies there, completely broken. Jin looks down and asks, "We were having a conversation, were we not?" Seeing this, Teus knits his brows in pure anger. Aegis sighs, rubbing his head in frustration, while Hades points her finger and screams out at him. She tries to move, but her body instantly locks up. "Why is my spirit magic not working?" Hades yells out for the guards to seize him. As the soldiers rush forward in a frenzy, Jin casually drops the first one with a single kick. Using his staff as a shield, Jin deflects their strikes and flings them aside. He tosses these trained soldiers around, like they are nothing but rag dolls. Teus barks out in a rage, demanding to know what Aegis is doing and telling him to help immediately. Teus wants blood, declaring that this insolent brat must pay for defying royalty. Finally, Aegis unsheathes his blade and stands up. With a cold glare, Aegis warns Jin not to blame him for what comes next. Teus laughs, saying his survival does not matter. "Go get him," Teus orders. But suddenly, Jin glows with a mysterious blue aura. In the blink of an eye, he vanishes completely, leaving the guards staring at empty air. Suddenly, his voice echoes through the room. "You mentioned that letting me run free is highly dangerous, and you are absolutely right." Even though they cannot see him, Jin's disembodied voice terrifies them. "If I truly wanted to, leveling this entire city to the ground would be effortless." But here is the real reason why he restrains himself. Hades and the guards blindly swing their weapons, screaming to find him. Jin whispers that it is because he prefers standing on the side of the common people. His silhouette slowly begins to materialize. "I am here to protect the lives of ordinary citizens," Jin says, suddenly appearing right behind Tos. However, there are always exceptions, he whispers chillingly into Tos's ear. "For monsters who treat human lives like trash, I show absolutely zero mercy." With eyes dripping with pure murderous intent, Jin asks, "So, which category do you fall into, Lord Clumosia?" Hades draws her sharp blade, screaming at Jin and demanding to know if he has any idea what he is doing. Facing them calmly, Jin replies that he knows exactly what he is doing. He is simply fighting back against tyrants who try to force ridiculous demands on him. Sweat drips down Wasa's face as he glares up, snarling a low, threatening question. "What did you just say? Are you really planning to wage war against this entire kingdom?" But Jin does not even flinch, replying that the real rebel here is not him, but Wasa. He explains that if they are true royalty, he is more than willing to show them a decent amount of respect. Standing before the shocked crowd, Jin adds that if they follow their own laws and make a reasonable request, he is happy to help them out. His bold words instantly send a wave of collective rage through the entire room. "But my worth is not so cheap that I will stay quiet and submit to utter nonsense," Jin says, staring down at the furiously grimacing Wasa. "If you try to bend me with force, do not be surprised when I break your hands." His voice drops to a chilling whisper. "But before that happens, I have one question for you." Leaning in close to Tos's ear, Jin asks, "Are you just an idiot who hallucinates that the world revolves around you? Or are you?" He adds, making Tos's eyebrow twitch, "Something else entirely." And right here, watch his eyes. A chilling blue light flares up deep within Jin's pupils. Suddenly, a slender silhouette appears at the heavy double doors, announcing that she has heard the entire story. Princess Charlotte steps gracefully into the grand hall. With a gentle face and warm, expressive eyes, she asks if she can join in on their little conversation. Meanwhile, the elite commander Wasa is still lying in a pathetic heap right at Jin's feet. He stammers out Princess Charlotte's name in utter embarrassment. At that exact moment, August slowly places his hand back onto his sword hilt. "You arrived at the perfect moment," he thinks, staring at Charlotte. "I will leave the rest of this mess to you, second princess." As Aegis finishes thinking her name, Charlotte Komosha, the young princess, flashes a brilliantly warm and friendly smile to the room. "You seem to be having quite a lot of fun, dear brother." Hearing this, To's face instantly twists as cold sweat pours down. Tos's brow twitches with hidden rage at Charlotte. He shifts his gaze over to the blonde man, finally realizing what is going on here. Resting her chin on her hand, Charlotte pouts playfully, complaining that her brother is being unfair. "Since you invited our kingdom's great hero, you absolutely should have invited me too." With sparkling, innocent eyes, she adds softly that she is not even here representing their royal father anyway. Hearing her mock him, Teus grinds his teeth in anger, shooting a quick, sharp glare at the man standing directly behind him. "Too bad this guy is no hero," Teus snaps back without hesitation. "He is a dangerous criminal who dared to threaten the royal family itself." Charlotte tilts her head, pretending to look surprised and curious. Oh, is that really what happened? Speaking up from the corner, Hades confirms it immediately. Yes, that man savagely attacked Wasa, the commander of our Fourth Holy Knight Order. Charlotte's eyes suddenly soften with a hint of sadness. Didn't you guys start this by acting rudely first? Wasa loses his cool, snorting loudly and demanding to know what she's talking about as he points right at Teus and Jin. Look at him. He was trying to assassinate our first prince. But Charlotte just tilts her head in confusion. Isn't he simply standing behind her brother? Right then, another man calmly steps up and lowers his voice, asking if that's true. Lord Jin Shido. Jin doesn't hesitate, bowing his head as he answers that yes, indeed, he was only standing there to ask a question. Check this out. Charlotte completely corners her brother, Teus. You heard him, royal brother. She says with absolute confidence. Surely you wouldn't lock someone up just for standing behind you. There is no way you are petty enough to treat a national hero like a common criminal, right? Teus just grinds his teeth in pure rage. Charlotte then turns her gaze past Teus to the man behind him. Addressing Lord Jin Shido once again, she slowly curtsies, gently lifting the edges of her dress. I won't force you to serve this kingdom, but if trouble ever comes, would you help us as a friend? Jin doesn't hesitate, smiling as he says he would gladly help out. Charlotte claps her hands together, visibly thrilled, thanking him but noting that this tense hallway is hardly the place for such a talk. She spins around to leave, calling out that they should take this conversation somewhere else. Raising her hand with absolute authority, she orders her guards to clear the path for her friend and show him total respect. The royal guards salute in unison, leaving Teus behind, absolutely boiling with silent rage at this blatant disrespect. Elsewhere, as their carriage rolls down a quiet dirt road, Jin sighs, admitting that the previous encounter really scared him half to death. August shoots him a confused look, asking why on earth he took such a massive risk, which instantly leaves Jin totally flustered. Stammering that it was just a sudden whim, Jin secretly sinks deep into his own thoughts. He hopes that bizarre, chilling bloodlust was just his imagination. But his calm eyes quickly shift to Charlotte sitting right across from him. Thanking her for saving them, Jin is met with a very shy, blushing wave of her hand. Bowing her head slightly, she adds that her family should be the ones apologizing for treating a national hero so poorly. Jin quickly objects, insisting there is absolutely no need for an apology. Sitting up straight with her hands resting on her lap, she formally introduces herself again as Charlotte, the second princess of this empire. Staring intently at him, she says she hopes they can continue to foster this precious relationship in the future. Offering a polite nod in agreement, Jin smiles, as August watches them with growing curiosity. He asks why the crown prince was sweating bullets, yet acted so recklessly, and Charlotte is quick to agree. She confesses she has no idea what he was truly planning, her expression suddenly turning incredibly serious. My older brother is a deeply ambitious man, Charlotte explains without holding back. Once he takes the throne, he plans to start aggressive wars with our neighbors to expand our borders. She continues softly. When that day comes, he probably views your immense power as a massive obstacle, she says, before quickly clapping her hands to reassure him. Don't worry too much. I won't let him interfere with you anymore, she declares with complete confidence. Right now, Hedin is likely reporting today's chaotic events directly to our father, the emperor. If father puts him under house arrest, he won't be able to target you so easily. But in Jin's mind, a completely different concern is bothering him that isn't what I'm worried about at all. Out of nowhere, she looks at him with determination, adding that she has absolutely no intention of handing the throne over to her brother anyway. She locks eyes with him, a playful smirk dancing on her lips, as she asks if he believes her. Jin matches her gentle tone and reassures her that yes, he absolutely believes her. Suddenly, August pipes up, asking where exactly they're heading and why the princess herself is tagging along. Charlotte responds instantly, reminding them both that Jin is the actual savior of their entire kingdom. Stepping gracefully down from the carriage, she points out how terribly rude it would be not to reward a hero like him. But her teasing tone shifts as she turns back, mentioning she heard he's currently staying at a cheap inn, which Jin awkwardly confirms. Charlotte gazes up at the blue sky, her cheeks flushing bright pink as a joyful smile spreads across her face, announcing they've prepared a special place just for him. Look at that. Jin can't hide his utter shock. Standing before him is a massive, incredibly luxurious mansion, and Charlotte proudly tells him that this place is officially his to use however he likes. Speechless, Jin slowly pushes open the massive doors, revealing an interior that's absolutely dripping in luxury and wealth. Jin can't help but marvel, admitting that this place is just way too grand. Seeing this, he cannot help but turn around and ask, "Can I really accept such a massive gift?" Charlotte answers without any hesitation, "Of course you can." She slowly explains that it originally belonged to a count, but the place has been sitting empty for quite a long time now. Hearing that, Jin gets pretty curious. A count? Confused, he asks straight up, "What if that guy comes back and demands his house?" "Never mind. I am overthinking this." Jin glances over at Charlotte, feeling that suddenly getting a whole mansion is a bit too much. August quickly chimes in, explaining that this just proves how highly they value his incredible abilities. He tilts his head and admits he can just move right in without hesitating at all. Looking around the estate, August adds that this home is completely his now. Meanwhile, Jin simply taps his fingertips silently against the surface of the table. From across the room, Charlotte watches them with a friendly smile. After a brief pause, Jin lowers his head and whispers, "I understand." Slumping back in his chair, he thinks to himself that living alone here is way too spacious, especially since the bedroom is so massive. Hearing this, August lets out a slightly forced laugh, promising to arrange some maids to help manage the mansion for him. This makes Jin pretty curious. "Wait, maids?" Right away, August mentions how dedicated the Poweroo sisters are. They would definitely be happy to serve him. Hearing this, Jin narrows his eyes slightly, asking if he is absolutely sure. August slowly admits that he already owes Jin a massive debt of gratitude. He stares right at Jin, hesitating for a moment before asking if he would mind listening to one more personal request. Confused, Jin asks what kind of request he means. Now, check this out. Over at the special training ground of Squad 7. Two recruits are clashing with wooden swords. Nearby, another pair duels with spears. Suddenly, Karina's eyes flash with sharp focus. The spear tips collide with a sharp metallic screech. Karina raises her weapon high into the air. Her spear points directly at the throat of a beast-eared man. Terrified, he quickly surrenders, yelling that he yields. Sudden applause erupts from the sidelines. Zia, who was watching closely, smiles and praises Karina for making such fast progress, but she remains humble, saying she still needs to work much harder. At the same time, Karina looks deeply lost in thought. During that incident the other day, she was only strong enough to handle a few weak underlings. Her mind drifts back to the past, flashing with old memories. But what about that guy? Thinking about this, Karina looks extremely annoyed. Damn it, why has the next step not happened yet? And how could a low-class creature do something so incredible? Suddenly, a soldier calls out to the captain, announcing that Lady Charlotte has just arrived. Walking right beside her, August tells everyone to keep up their training. Following close behind them is Jin. Seeing him, Karina cannot hide her fury and grits her teeth, recognizing that guy instantly. She glares at Jin, wondering what on earth he is doing here. Meanwhile, August gestures politely, telling Lady Charlotte to please follow him this way. She offers a bright smile and thanks him. Watching this, a confused Jin asks August what this is all about. "What exactly do you want me to do?" August replies with a subtle hint, saying Jin must have guessed it by now. Looking out over the training field, Jin realizes his real intention. "You want me to instruct these guys?" August does not beat around the bush, confirming that is exactly right. He tilts his head slightly, whispering that Jin must have seen Prince Tusa's arrogant and condescending attitude earlier with his own eyes. August quickly explains that Prince Toys and Princess Charlotte are actually cousins, currently locked in a highly fierce and cutthroat battle for the royal throne. We simply have no idea when he might resort to dirty tricks. He calmly points out that the only ones sworn to protect Princess Charlotte with their lives are the soldiers of Squad 7. August's voice turns dead serious, stating that danger could strike at any moment, which is why he wants Jin to train them to be ready. Meanwhile, Jin keeps his eyes locked on the squad practicing their martial arts. Just watching them, he can tell their current skills are already quite decent. He knows how much effort they put in, clearly seeing that these soldiers have been working incredibly hard day after day. But this scene triggers memories of his own past, flashing back to a heavily armored girl gasping for air. Standing with his arms crossed, Jin is lost in deep thought about how this sight brings back old, painful memories. Visions of his powerful past self flash by. 100 million years ago, he also had to train like an absolute madman, just to qualify as an official secret agent. Suddenly, August puts his hands on his hips and barks out an order for everyone to gather around. Gesturing toward Jin, he announces that to seriously level up their training, they have invited a legendary national hero to act as their new special instructor. Argo speaks with a perfect mix of authority and cold indifference. He is going to point out our weaknesses so we can improve. Is that clear to everyone? Instantly, the crowd shouts back in perfect unison, "Yes, Commander." Meanwhile, Jin just stands there silently, furrowing his brows while slowly scanning every single face standing right in front of him. Teaching those who actually listen is easy, but looking at them, they still cannot contain their excitement. And honestly, who can blame them? That is the absolute beast, who single-handedly brought down that giant monster, right? Then, Jin notices a group of rowdy thugs gathered together. Dealing with these stubborn brats is definitely going to be a massive headache. A moment later, he wears an incredibly serious expression, announcing that first, he wants to test their physical endurance. Jin immediately dishes out their very first task, ordering everyone to start running laps around the entire training ground. Instantly, Karina pushes back, arguing that they do this exact run every single day, so there is absolutely no need to test their already overflowing stamina. She speaks with utter contempt, asking if he seriously came all this way just to make them do such trivial, boring chores. This prompts Jin to warn her that she is being insolent, while Argos gently cuts in, calling her name. Surprisingly, Jin humbles himself first, apologizing for his behavior. But then, he suggests that they change their approach slightly, a sudden move that leaves Karina a different approach, she wonders. Meanwhile, Jin calmly and unhurriedly removes his heavy cloak. He slowly rolls up his sleeves and steps closer to Karina, not hiding his intentions at all, as he remarks that this sounds pretty interesting. Your weapon of choice is a spear, right? He asks. Karina nods in confusion, and in a flash, Jin tightly grabs the sharp spear with his bare hand. Pointing the sharp tip toward the sky, he challenges her to try stabbing him just once. He confidently offers her a special deal, no time limit. If she can touch him even once, the running laps will be cancelled immediately. Hearing this makes Charlotte feel quite excited too, noting how fun it sounds. Meanwhile, a slight smirk plays on the corner of Jin's mouth. Having to take lessons from someone you think is weaker than you is definitely a tough pill for anyone to swallow. Still, Karina cannot help but mock him, asking if he even knows how to handle a spear. While effortlessly showing off a few of his own elite moves, Jin casually tells her not to worry, a display of raw skill that leaves Karina absolutely stunned with disbelief. Dropping into a solid stance, Jin tilts his head with absolute confidence, declaring that there is not a single weapon in this world he cannot master. 100 million years ago, Jin wielded his spear with absolute grace. His powerful frame thrusts the heavy spear high into the air, gasping heavily from sheer exhaustion with every strike. Just then, someone walks in, making him stop mid-motion. A spear this time, is it? Caught off guard by the familiar voice, Jin immediately turns around to look. Jin gently calls out Kagura's name, who teases him back, asking if he has any other hobbies besides constant training. Walking over, Jin mentions how he loved watching superhero shows as a kid. Kagura hands him a drink and clarifies, saying he was actually talking about the present day. He points out that Jin is the absolute top agent this nation has, wondering if he ever thinks about taking a break. Jin just chuckles softly, replying that he has absolutely no time for resting. Most of my missions involve infiltrating dangerous enemy organizations. He remembers back to the times he was sent out into the field with completely empty hands. In those brutal situations, I had no other choice but to scavenge for weapons right on the spot. That is exactly why, no matter what weapon I pick up, I must master it instantly. Hearing this level of dedication leaves Kagura completely speechless, unable to argue. It is all for one simple goal, raising his chances of survival, even if only by a fraction. Kagura sighs deeply, promising that one day, he will build something that ensures Jin never has to worry about weapons again. Now, back in reality, Jin is locked in fierce spear combat with the two of them clash furiously, locked in a brutal stalemate for what feels like hours. Jin's eyes narrow with a dangerous glint as their weapons collide, sending massive sparks flying into the air. Soon, Jin presses forward, forcing Karina backward into a corner as his sharp blade inches dangerously close to her face. He calmly points out that she has now lost 15 rounds in a row. Gritting her teeth, Karina wipes the heavy sweat off her face, refusing to back down. Still full of fight, Karina demands another round, and their spear blades violently slam together once again. Suddenly, Karina's instincts flare up. Watching her, Jin notes that her movements are exceptionally fast, and her reaction time is actually pretty impressive. Screaming at the top of her lungs, she lunges forward. Jin frowns, realizing her raw strength is actually quite incredible too. With every clash of their spears, he can feel a massive, heavy force behind her aggressive strikes. This is it, Jin realizes. This is the true, raw power of an evolved human. Suddenly, his eyes narrow, but in that split second, Jin's weapon is knocked straight to the ground, Dropping to one knee, she glares up at him, prompting Jin to yell out in sheer annoyance that it is enough. Staring back with absolute determination, Karina insists she can keep going, leaving Jin to sigh at her stubbornness, muttering about wasted effort. Jin turned to leave. She was completely out of stamina. The harder she tried, the sloppier her form got. He glanced over at her, just as he expected. She lacked real stamina. Jin watched her walk. She is clearly using raw physical power to hide her complete lack of technique. Her fighting style is nowhere near refined. It makes sense though. In this day and age, spirit magic is the absolute center of combat. Looking back at the warriors from his own time, the standards for basic combat skills were totally different. First things first, he needs to build up her basic physical foundation. Jin asks if she has any objections to that, making Karina curse silently in absolute frustration. Damn it. She glares at him, realizing he hasn't even broken a single drop of sweat yet. What on earth is this guy made of? Jin reaches out to help her up. Can you stand? Her lips tighten, but she knows she has to accept his help. Looking at him, Karina accepts the truth. Jin is incredibly strong. Locking her eyes onto his with sheer determination, Karina finally reaches out her hand to take Jin's grasp. He asks with a calm smile, so, should we start with a few laps? Jin's casual suggestion leaves everyone else completely speechless. As birds fly through the night sky, Teus moves like a shadow. He slowly approaches a quiet room and touches the heavy iron door. Raising an oil lamp to see who's inside, he finds Rutman waiting. Rutman mocks him. Well, we have quite a big shot visiting today. Teus fires right back. I just wanted a quick word with the mastermind behind this entire mess. He locks his gaze on the man, Lord Rutman. The old lord sighs, saying he has absolutely nothing to tell him. And you have got to love Tos's sheer confidence here. He calmly asks if Rutman is seriously still plotting something. But the old lord just smirks. Let me tell you one thing, though. Rutman speaks with chilling calm. Even if you manage to escape this time, the royal family is destined to burn in the end. Teus chuckles softly, clenching his fist. As for that, he pulls out a necklace, sending Rutman into a state of sheer shock. The lord screams in rage. Impossible. How did you get that? Did you think you were the only one with access? Teus smiles. It's an artifact of the fallen, a tool pumped with their dark power. Isn't it? He confidently smirks. That would be my guess. You used that forbidden power to trigger this whole disaster, didn't you? Teus's mocking words make Rutman's blood boil. Now, don't go putting the cart before the horse. Our real conversation starts right here. Tell me, you absolutely despise the Kamozia royals, don't you? In that case, why not team up with me instead? Teus scoffs. Both my father and Charlotte are incredibly naive, and at this rate, our country will soon be invaded and reduced to ashes. Rutman gasps. You are a royal, yet you want to destroy. Exactly. Tos's voice echoes in the dark. This kingdom needs to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch to become a truly powerful, dominant empire. He leans in close, and to make that dream a reality, I need the dark power of your forbidden artifacts. Rutman's face goes completely dark. Fine. I can't promise to put you on the throne of this new empire, but that hardly matters. In return, Teus warns, you must swear absolute, unwavering loyalty to me. Hearing that, the old man freezes. Loyalty? Teus smiles. It would be a massive headache if you went and betrayed me later on. Teus laughs internally. What an absolute idiot. A simple oath means nothing. I will use you until you are dry, then discard you when your time is up. He quickly agrees. Secretly, he has zero intention of letting anyone with royal blood walk away from this alive anyway. Rutman bows. I swear my loyalty to you. Teus smirks. Remember, you said the words. Suddenly, the pocket watch in Teus's hand glows, and Rutman's physical body begins to blur. He stares up in sheer terror. I swear my absolute loyalty to you. Teus calmly explains to him, this dark relic places an absolute, binding curse on anyone who utters those exact words, even if it is just a temporary lie. His voice drops. It forces a mental suggestion so deep that you will genuinely believe this curse is your own deepest, most desperate desire. Suddenly, the old lord drops to his knees. His eyes glaze over as he murmurs, Your Highness, please command me as you wish. Teus sneers. How absolutely pathetic. Just the mere thought of a lowborn rat like you trying to replace the royal family is enough to make me sick. His cold voice echoes. In the grand scheme of things, all of you are just disposable chess pieces for me to use. Teus looks down at Rutman. The person who should rule this land is definitely not Charlotte, and it is certainly not you. His voice carries absolute certainty. This nation belongs entirely to me. Meanwhile, Jin is pushing his pace to the absolute limit. wiping away his sweat. He sighs, man. Running feels fantastic. He glances backward, planning to wrap up the training, but immediately freezes at the sight. Okay, this is literally turning into a classic sports manga. He scratches his head. Sorry, I went too hard. August replies, it is totally fine. He is just glad to see how out of shape he really is. He explains with absolute focus that they usually travel by horseback and end their battles quickly using spirit magic, which is why he completely underestimated physical training. August adds that from now on, he will mainly focus on building his stamina. Jin nods, pleased, saying that is for the best. Jin glances over hesitantly and asks if the princess plans to head back soon. Charlotte blushes, asking if she is bothering him, which makes him quickly deny it. She suddenly sighs, admitting that if she doesn't return soon, she will definitely get scolded. Charlotte then says, before I go, Jin, there is something important I really need to double check with you. Reaching into her pocket, Charlotte pulls out a glowing object and asks if he has ever seen anything like it. Jin's eyes instantly widen in utter shock, wondering what it could be. He asks what on earth that thing is, and Charlotte explains that it was secretly confiscated from Lord Zootman, who was one of the masterminds behind the plot. Her words sink into Jin's mind, as she calls it an invasion tool, a device fueled by the power of corrupted beasts. He freezes in shock. An invasion tool? Things just got incredibly dangerous. We have absolutely no idea who created it, or even how it was actually put together, but rumors say it grants the user overwhelming power, she adds, while a cold sweat breaks out all over Jin's face. With a grim expression, Jin's mind races in absolute panic. How could an advanced machine like this even exist in this day and age? Is it a device constructed from parts of corrupted beasts? Charlotte quickly notices his expression, guessing he must already recognize it. Jin admits he found a similar device hidden beneath the academy. Fearing how incredibly dangerous it was, he took it upon himself to destroy it completely. August points out that the very device Jin mentioned was actually the root cause of this whole incident. Charlotte stands up, relieved, calling it a wise choice, since leaving it behind would have let the enemy recover it. She adds that she intends to investigate its origins. She asks Jin to share any new information if he happens to discover anything. Jin agrees and watches her leave. August mutters about the invasion tool, firmly declaring that they absolutely cannot allow a dangerous disaster like this to ever happen again. We must stay on high alert, August says, then suddenly asks what is wrong. Jin replies, it is nothing, but deep down, Jin is deeply troubled. Corrupted beasts normally rampage endlessly, so could that horde have been controlled by the power of the invasion tool? But his thoughts conflict, because to him, those monsters looked like they were willingly waiting for orders, and their coordinated movements right after teleporting made it clear they were acting together under some kind of direction. Is there any other explanation for this? Or are we looking at something even more terrifying? Jin silently analyzes the word coordinated, suddenly recalling Kagura's warning about newly evolved, highly dangerous beasts appearing alongside these environmental changes. With a grim, almost demonic look on his face, he wonders if there are smart individuals capable of leading their own kind, but quickly tells himself that is impossible. 4 days later, at the Hannes Academy, someone lets out a heavy sigh, complaining about how exhausting it has been. The headmistress complains about being kept under house arrest for an entire week, while August sincerely thanks her for cooperating with them. She insists with a sigh that she already told them repeatedly she had absolutely nothing to do with any of this. Then she drops a hint, admitting there were indeed some incredibly foolish people hiding within her academy, though August reassures her that it is not her fault. She shakes her head, feeling she should have noticed sooner, and adds that if Jin had not been there, things would have been completely beyond saving. Jin tells her to forget about it. She explains she heard he was only temporarily hired for the investigation, having no official connection to the Holy Knights, which Jin quietly confirms is true. She marvels at how he ended up saving everyone anyway, then gently pushes herself up from her chair to stand. She sincerely thanks him for protecting both this country and her beloved students, a gesture that catches Jin completely off guard, causing him to freeze. August quietly turns to watch Jin's reaction, while the headmistress asks him if he still plans on continuing his teaching job here, even though his original goal was just to infiltrate. Jin thinks to himself that he only needed the money for his travels, but now that he is receiving a hefty reward for his help, continuing to teach might not actually be necessary anymore. August chimes in, offering to arrange a substitute teacher if Jin wants to leave, but she firmly cuts in, refusing to allow that since he already accepted the job, regardless of the circumstances, he must fulfill his duties. Her stubborn words leave both Jin and August completely speechless. Besides, quitting after just one day would be incredibly unfair to the students, which actually sounds quite reasonable to them. August hesitatingly tries to protest. She quickly tells them she is not trying to be difficult, then turns and instructs them to follow her as she walks ahead. As the three walk together down the red carpet, Jin asks about the status of Professor Rita. August quickly avoids eye contact before informing him that the professor is still being held in custody, while Rita screams to be released. "I am innocent." The man whines inside the cell. Outside, the guard barks, "Stop talking to yourself. He is just trying to humiliate him. Anyway," the soldier says, "we have tons of reports on his suspicious behavior. What are we supposed to do with him now?" Jin shrugs. "He is probably harmless. Just let him go." But the principal cuts in, pointing out that the man actively tried to ruin his reputation. "Let him cool his heels in there for a bit," she says. Then her voice shifts. "More importantly, we have finally arrived." She turns back, telling everyone to head inside. And guys, Jin is not ready for what is behind this door. As soon as he walks in, several girls blush. They even drop their books right onto the floor. Jin can only look around in utter confusion. "What exactly is going on here?" he asks. The principal smiles, explaining that every single student in this room came here just for him. "Looks like the rumors about the hero who saved our nation have spread everywhere," she notes, as whispers of "Look, it is Professor Jin" fill the room. It really is Professor Jin. Over in the corner, Milia is absolutely seething, her voice dripping with irritation as she watches the crowd. "They finally realized how incredible the professor is," she complains. "So now, they just suddenly flip their attitudes. It is so fake. Do not they have any shame?" she huffs. Lias just chuckles beside her. Right then, a young student approaches Jin. "Professor, I need to tell you something." The girl, Ivy, explains that she skipped class that day to take a walk around the town. Ivy's quiet voice drags out as she remembers the terror because right there, standing right in front of her, was a massive, horrifying monster. "I was completely frozen," she says, thinking my life was over. But then she looks back at the memory of a fierce battle that erupted right before her eyes. Back in the present, Ivy looks up at him with pure adoration, thanking him over and over again. Other girls crowd around, chiming in that they saw it too. The principal gently pats his shoulder, whispering, "Well, there you have it. I know you're a busy man," she teases, "but it would not hurt to drop by and visit us every once in a while." She asks if he would ever consider actually stepping up to teach these kids as their instructor. Jin sighs. "I get it," he replies. Suddenly, we flash back 100 million years. A past life Jin is running, his mind racing the corrupted. "That is right." Kagura confirms that is what the government officially calls them. The others murmur, wondering if they are really just monsters born from pure corruption. It makes sense. Honestly, those things can only survive and move around in areas that are already heavily polluted. He lets out a heavy breath, which means she finishes his thought exactly. "We have nowhere left to run." Her hollow voice echoes, declaring that humanity has run out of hiding spots. She looks over, noting it is rare to see him look so grim. Jin's face darkens at the harsh reality. Sana looks down, her voice soft as she calls his name, prompting him to ask what is wrong. The others tease him, agreeing that she is totally right. Mizuki even joins in, asking what happened to his usual cocky, self-assured attitude. He remains dead serious. "Our enemy this time around is not even human. We are facing an unidentified, terrifying beast," he says, looking down. "Even if we throw our best missiles at it, we might not destroy it completely." His grim question leaves everyone completely uneasy. Do we even stand a chance? Suddenly, Sana steps right up to him and calls his name, reaching out to give his cheek a very firm pinch. "Are not you our nation's strongest, most prized agent?" she teases. "What is the point of wearing such a miserable face right now? Just stay cool and collected like you always do," she tells him. Sana walks off with a confident grin, adding that if we can purify the environment, those things will not be able to move. "Right." He nods. "Yeah, pretty much." Kagura chimes in, explaining that their research team is already developing a brand new device capable of purifying the entire polluted area. The tension is thick. Now, it all comes down to a race against time. How long can humanity survive before that machine is fully finished? So the plan is actually pretty simple, is not it? Sana says firmly, "We just hold them off, like we always do." Her simple question makes Jin pause. He finally smiles back, admitting that she is absolutely right. A brief moment of hope, but look at this. In an instant, pure chaos erupts, and his squad collapses to the ground. Jin stands frozen as his friends fall one by one. His knees buckle, dropping him to the dirt in complete despair, his face going completely numb. From the wreckage, her weak voice calls out his name. He screams in panic. Sana. She coughs. You are still alive. Just as I thought. Let me get you out of here. We need to treat those wounds. He pleads. But she shakes her head. It is too late. Listen to me, she gasps. I am not going to ask you to be some hero and save this world from the corrupted. Just promise me you will not give up, she whispers, her voice fading to a barely audible breath at the very end. And then, silence. She is gone. Clutching his radio, Jin screams into the receiver. Kagura, do you read me? Are you there? That nanomachine experiment on human subjects, he says. I will do it. Kagura freezes on the other end. Are you absolutely sure about this? If your body rejects those machines, it will kill you, his friend warns. Jin just stares at the sky. If we keep fighting like this, we die anyway. His voice grows firm. I won't give up, he vows, snapping back to reality as he wakes from his past nightmares. He clutches his aching head. Just a dream. Snapping out of it, Jin's gaze lands on the blocks in front of him. He picks up a block and stares. Jin quietly promises himself that he is fine, and he has not forgotten. Staring at the photo, his resolve hardens. He vows to reclaim a world free from the shadow of the corrupted. No matter how much time it takes, he will make them pay. The scene shifts northeast to the Maomo stronghold, located deep within the Plusa territory of the Kamusha kingdom. A voice echoes. Urgent report. A breathless messenger bursts right in, yelling that he has an absolute emergency to report. The scout gasps that enemy forces are flooding down from the northern kingdom of Bilehet, but his commander coldly cuts him off. Grand Commander Glenn of the Holy Knights calmly explains that he can see them perfectly from right where he stands. Before them lies pure chaos, with thick dust choking the sky. Horrifying monsters are swarming directly toward their position, their bone-chilling roars echoing through the entire battlefield. Glenn admits that fighting a horde this massive alone will be almost impossible, leaving his terrified soldier begging to know what to do. Suddenly, a glowing orb of raw magical energy manifests in the air. Glenn screams, unleashing the massive blast directly at the approaching enemy. Look at this. Their attacks clash, but his powerful blast gets completely erased. Glenn stares in sheer horror, unable to believe his eyes. Glenn yells to run and warn the king immediately, promising he will hold the beasts off right here. Deep down, his mind is racing. How could these invaders nullify spiritual arts so easily? Besides, they have never gathered in massive hordes like this before. Standing right before them is the ominous, dark shadow of the leader of the corrupted. Glenn stares at him in sheer confusion, desperately wondering what on earth is happening with these invaders.